I'm Myra Ansari. Wave News at 3 is next.
With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave News.
We thank you for joining us here on Wave News at 3. I'm Myra Ansari.
And I'm meteorologist Brian Good. As we have been talking about for days, this is the action day we've been planning for, getting ready to get through. And we do have storms producing some severe weather already moving into wave country.
Yeah, we could hear some of the rain coming down over the Wave studios here just a few minutes ago. So a lot happening. We can see the lightning there behind us, too.
And most of this has been an Indiana event, but it's about to switch over to a Kentucky event very soon. Here's a live look right now from our SkyTrack camera. Looking there off to the north. This is from downtown Louisville, looking to the north into areas of Clark County. You see a new warning just came out. I'm not sure if I'm being able to trigger that or not. Probably won't where I'm standing at, but I'll see it pop in just a second. But we have several warnings out across Indiana. So let's get right into the radar. Look how noisy this is. Boy, this does not look like fun. Several downpours and thunderstorms and several warnings that are out, but a tremendous amount of lightning. Not a time to be outside. Even if you're enjoying quiet time at the pool and this mess is heading toward you, you may as well just go ahead inside because you're going to have to because it's going to be too active. The warnings we're watching, really three areas that have my attention. Right around Carrollton and around Cincinnati, Scott County, all the way into parts of the Louisville area, and then the third one back to the west as you head toward areas around Jasper County. These are the three clumps I've been watching. The one in the middle is the one that's surging into Jefferson County, has produced the severe thunderstorm warning that goes all the way into Jefferson County now, including the E.P. Tom Sawyer Park area and around Prospect as well. Again, no tornado sightings here. These have all been just damaging wind bursts and several cases of at least some hail. We've had some wind damage as far as tree limbs that have been broken, so be aware of that. And again, this is all going to continue to build toward the heat. It's attracted to heat. That's where it's going. It will build more and more south over the city of Louisville and eventually into Okolona and Bullitt County. At the moment, the eastern side here of Jefferson County, getting out some of the heaviest of rain. Now getting reported in from Clark County of 3 trees that are down at Prairie Crossing Road and Covered Bridge. Just came down a few moments ago of trees down. Now we got a tornado warning. Hold on 1 second. I got to stay up here because if this is part of our area, it is. All right, so we're going to go to live coverage here of the tornado warning that is out in our area. So hold this up, keep this screen up here as we kind of cover that. This is going to be located right there, long portions just around New Liberty as you head into Campbellsburg, Kentucky. So very much grazing there as you head into portions of, say, into Carroll County as well on the southern side as it drifts off to the south into the east. Kevin Harness with me now. Kevin, you've been tracking this cell as well. It's been making that journey slowly over the river.
Yeah, you know, Brian, what we'll be watching will be the showers, the thunderstorms, and the potential for that rotation. That will continue to move across parts of southern Indiana and northern Kentucky right on into I would say 5, 6 o'clock time frame, and then things will gradually ease. But it's going to take a little bit of time to get these past the area. That's for sure. We continue to look at the tornado warning. Again, I'll just mention that this includes a very small part of the viewing area. This is for Carroll County, and with that, we have additional thunderstorm warnings that are coming out as well. So we'll take a look at those. Brian and I will be tracking this. Ryan's jumping in. We've been on our 24/7 stream throughout the afternoon, keeping you up to date with what's happening. The tornado warning for parts of Carroll, Gallatin, Grant, and Owen. The tornado warning, again, coming out. This will be what we'll watch through the afternoon. The potential for that rotation will be there. However, what we will be also concerned with will just be general winds. And Brian, I'll ask you to cue up Max 2 for us. We're sort of frozen here back on the 2:29 time frame. There we are. So let me go back to our home view here if we can. And with that, I'll show you the warnings that we have. There are several. At this point, we were sort of fading out the thunderstorm warnings, and then boom, we've seen 2 thunderstorm warnings fire up. These are now extending closer to the Ohio River, and the 1 tornado warning that we have that will keep us in nonstop coverage right here on Wave, and that will continue as we roll on into the next little bit. You can see that storm moving near New Liberty. It's just off to the east of Carrollton, so this is not a real factor for the city of Carrollton, a very small part of Carroll County, but right over I-71. Let me put the velocity on so you can see better where we have that rotation, and it is just north of 71, very strong winds approaching the interstate at this point. This is the couplet we're watching, and that will be approaching New Liberty. So for folks that are in the far southeastern parts of Carroll County, you are under that tornado warning, and that tornado warning remains in place as we track that out of the viewing area. Eventually, that will be passing out of Carroll County and then moving over into the Lexington viewing area. With that said, back to the home view we go, because I want to point out, while that is the lone tornado warning that we have, they have had additional tornado warnings up around the Cincinnati area. That was a confirmed tornado on the ground, moving now into extreme southern Ohio. We also have just across the Ohio River for us severe thunderstorm warnings that are moving in, and those can also pack a punch. We've certainly seen some very strong winds with those today. Brian?
Absolutely. You get into the damage and wind scenario, these straight line winds that can take place. You can easily get up to about 60 at one point. A couple of the warnings we had around for 70-mile-per-hour winds. We could see out of these storms, they cross the river itself, moving into parts there of the Louisville area. They're issuing a new severe thunderstorm warning. You already see that it's out. This is just an expansion of the one that gets you to downtown Louisville, all the way back into Corydon, and all the way back into areas not too far away from the northern part there of Meade County. That severe thunderstorm warning covers a good group of people here. We're talking about hundreds of thousands of you. This will be out until about 46 after the hour will be the time limit on that particular one, but that will be certainly the cluster we're going to be watching as it drifts off to the south and east, heading into the metro here. In the next, I would say, 15, 20 minutes, these are moving at a good speed, and in some cases, you're getting new development that is popping in advance of the line as it moves into Jefferson County, so these could easily expand into the rest of Louisville. So if you're in Louisville right now, this is basically your main show of this entire event is going to be over the next hour. You're going to get several warnings, likely for wind, at times for hail. You may even get some flood advisories. We hope you don't get any type of tornado warning. Either way, just stay inside. If you are expecting to head out of work here soon, you work in an office in downtown, you don't want to be driving in this mess. I can assure you, the rainfall rate today is over 2.5 inches per hour. Torrential rainfall that will lead to ponding of road in the waters, a lot of hydroplaning concerns. So if you're able to just hunker down where you're at and enjoy maybe a few snacks for a minute and just let them drift on by, I assure you it will get better here. In about a 90-minute window, we will see some improvements. But for the next 90 minutes, it is going to be a bit rocky out there. There's so many different warnings, different pockets of heavier rain and thunderstorms. And just a big heads up for those of you south of Louisville, it looks quiet now, Kevin, down there, but that's where these are going, and we know that's going to keep us active all the way into sunset. Yeah, and there's plenty of wind energy even just below us, so south of us, so these storms aren't going to die down anytime soon. They're just now starting their uptick, and with that, we have until 3:45 this afternoon, the tornado warning that barely clips Carroll County. This storm was tightening up over Vevey, Indiana, now moving south of the river, and then we also have along the Ohio River from Corydon, stretching all the way up to New Albany and downtown Louisville, that severe thunderstorm warning that also is in place until 3:45 this afternoon. Temperatures are hot, winds are gusty. I'm going to zoom in to the warnings that we have. I'm going to show you the rotation that we're tracking. Southeast Carroll County, you're most at risk for damaging winds, and in addition to that, the potential for the rotation that we've talked about. So let's talk about that with our scopes, and I'm going to put the velocity on, and then we'll look at the hail potential. We have had some hail with these storms today as well. Despite the warmth, some of the hail has been noted. This is the rotation that we have, and you can see that moving just south of Vevey, moving right into the Carson area. We said it would push near New Liberty, and that's going to be the case as it crosses over Interstate 71. These are some very strong winds that we have. That is the velocity that we're looking at. That gives us an idea of winds toward and away from the radar. That's an indicator that we have the rotation. When we look just past the velocity, we can also show the hail potential, but debris is important too, because that gives us confirmation if we have any damage being lofted into the atmosphere that is unknown or sort of out of the ordinary from the radar. So let me look at the damage or debris detector, as we would call it, and what we're looking for is in that general area where we saw the greatest rotation, where there may be something that shows up. Typically it would be more in the white to bluish category. We do not see that there, so that's some good news. That's important to note. We also can take a look
look at the hail potential within that storm itself. And then we'll look back toward the Louisville area because I know a lot of folks are curious what's happening here in the city. We are sort of analyzing the tornado warning at this point. We look at the hail potential. We see up to nickel-size hail easing as we go toward Carson. That storm still maintaining nickel-size hail. We talk about the Louisville area. You saw a moment ago we deployed the storm tracker moving through the metro. Let's go over to Brian Good, who's looking at the severe thunderstorm warning for Louisville Metro until 3:45 this afternoon.
All right, thanks, Kevin. And yeah, that's the one that's got that very heavy rain now moving in across really the downtown area all the way Portland, downtown, Prospect, Linden, and we have deployed the storm tracker out. They are located right in the middle of all this heavy rain and thunderstorm activity in that middle spot there up 65 heading into the interchange. There we go now. That's a live look of the storm track itself heading into multi-lanes of traffic there. At least everyone's giving them some space, which is key on a heavy rain day like that. Just be aware of some of that ponding of water. I know Grant is our driver out there tonight. Please be careful, Grant, as you venture out. We'll keep an eye on him as he makes his way through in between spots of some of these storms. But I got a feeling that as all these bump together, Kevin, they're going to congeal more and more into one big heavy rain flash flooding scenario. But as long as they got the individual personalities to them, if you will, that's when they still have to watch for some localized downburst winds, some hail. The trail threat can't happen in the scenario, but it's not as obvious like the one cell that you have a little closer to Cincinnati and Carroll County.
Yeah, wind, obviously, with any of these storms, small hail looks possible, but you're right. This will turn into a heavy rainmaker, especially if you get one or more. The good news is these are moving through. The difference also in this system versus the last several that we had is it's during the daytime and not the overnight. That could be good or bad depending on how you look at it, but regardless, we are tracking storms today. They're going to be isolated tornado warnings like the one we see over parts of Carroll County. It's just about to move out of our viewing area. Our plan for this is to watch these storms as they pass. You can see that wind strengthening. That is some intense wind right over the Carson area. That is pretty broad rotation. However, that is still strong wind being indicated by radar. This is Carroll County as you work through Carson. There's Carrollton. 71 goes through it. If you know your way up through 71 towards Cincinnati, you're familiar with this area. But we do have some very strong winds right over the interstate near Carson. This will be moving out. This is the county line. I'd give it another 10 to 15 minutes, and that is out of our viewing area. That tornado warning will be peeled back to the following counties as you look down sort of stream, and that would be parts of Gallatin County, moving over into Owen County, and then continuing to press to the east. So for our viewing area and all purposes for us, we'll continue to watch this storm passing through southeastern parts of Carroll County. That is the strongest storm that we have on radar. It is the one that is rotating the sort of strongest as well. With that, I'm going back to the home view, and I'm going to zoom back to our radar view as opposed to the velocity. You'll take a look at this, and you can see the number of severe thunderstorm warnings that we have lined up. This whole line will continue to press south of the Ohio River over the course of the next half hour to hour. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke with an update.
All right, we've been watching for where these storm reports are coming in from here, Kevin. We've got a couple of them here. Trees down in Washington County, Indiana, near Pekin. Multiple trees down. Intersection of State Road 335 and East Elmer Martin Road. And, of course, that was about 2:27 this afternoon. Bennettsville in Clark County, they've got 3 trees down across the roadway on Perry Crossing Road, covered bridge. And, of course, that happened around 2:54. We've also got a place where you can send your photos, the Wave Weather Facebook page. There's a red box with some text in it. Put your photos in there, or you can also send it to the Wave Weather app. Just tap send us your photos. If you've got damage, please safely send those photos to those locations so we can get them on the air, Kev.
Thank you, Ryan. Heavy wind over near the Prospect area. That's where we're also seeing potential for some trees down and wind damage as we continue with that severe thunderstorm warning. The severe thunderstorm warning, Louisville, you see it flashing until 3:45. The tornado warning moving out of Carroll County also until 3:45, but it's going to be out of our viewing area much earlier than that, probably within the next 5 to 10 minutes at most. With that said, we're not finished with severe weather. We still have the potential to see these storms on the leading edge produce producing some very strong winds. I'm going to start with the far western part, and then we'll work our way back to the tornado warning. Again, it is radar indicated. These storms also radar indicated with potential 60-mile-per-hour winds. We also see the heavy rain coming through. Places that are getting repetitive rain in the heavy nature, we'll see the flash flooding potential. So flood advisories will be being hoisted as well. We look at the velocity in general along this warning, and you can see these little bowing segments, pockets of heavier wind. There's one across far southern and southwestern Crawford County, not far from Leavenworth, some strong wind. We also have strong wind moving into the border of Harrison and Floyd County. That one will approach New Albany and possibly Louisville. That could be upwards of 50 to 60-mile-per-hour winds with that. Another pocket of wind over in northeast parts of Jefferson County. Potential with some strong wind on that. Severe thunderstorm warning, yes, in place until 3:45. We move our radar back over to the tornado warning that we have. As we continue to scan the skies, you can see new severe thunderstorm warning coming out. Let me go to
Tor possible on that warning for the Louisville area.
Brian's mentioning the threat on that with Tor possible. So that's going to include Fern Creek, J-Town, as well as St. Matthews. You can see the counties included. This is going to include a large population, as you can imagine. This is Jefferson, Oldham, Spencer, and Shelby counties. So just shy of 200,000 people within that warning itself. So we'll watch that as it continues to move through. One also thing to note, the lightning with these storms, very intense. You're going to have to get inside. Let these storms pass. They're not going to last long. These will be out of the metro by 5 o'clock. So let these storms pass. The lightning is intense. You don't want to be outside. If you're under one of these severe thunderstorm warnings, stay away from windows. If you are under and happen to be a tornado warning that takes place, lowest level, away from those windows. So again, we're watching for the potential of 60-mile-per-hour winds with this as that moves through parts of Jefferson County. It's especially the eastern half of Jefferson County, southern Oldham, good chunk of Shelby, and the far western part of Spencer counties. Now, back to the sort of tour of the radar that we were looking at before that warning came out. We're looking at these pockets of heavy wind. We're looking at that rotation that is moving out of the Carroll County area. See the green and the red? This is where we had the strongest rotation. It's right over the county line. You're going to see this polygon get redrawn, the tornado warning that will not include Carroll County within the next few minutes. Even though that warning technically goes until 3:45, it will be allowed to expire for Carroll County first as that storm continues its movement off to the east, and that will continue pushing in that direction, moving away from us and closer to the I-75 corridor. Closer to us, we are tracking storms in the metro that have the potential for not only the heavy rain and the flash flooding, but some strong winds. Let's go over to Brian Good.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Zoom the radar in. You're looking at the wind fields here instead of rainfall, but this is a look at the wind field into northeast parts there of Jefferson County. This is in the Springhurst area, not too far away from Tinseltown. You get all the way down to Westport Road and to the malls there into St. Matthews and Middletown. There is a broad circulation. I kind of drew it on there, the little pink swirly cue, if you will. It is broad, and we're waiting to see if there's any sign that it can tighten up. If that happens, that's a different ball game. That does allow then for the warning to get upgraded to a tornado warning. But they did a severe thunderstorm warning with a tornado tag just because right now we can even see that in its loop. That is broad rotation that has taken place. Our job is to monitor it, and you guys at home just stay close and just know that we've got our eyes on this as it moves gently there across southeast areas, northeast areas of Jefferson County. Doesn't mean it always develops anything more than just what you see here, but in this environment today with so much heat and fuel available and wind energy, having wind at all this portion of July is not unheard of, but it's rare. And whenever these all meet together, this is the type of environment we got to watch. There are a lot of changes that can happen quickly, especially when it comes to the downburst winds. And Kevin, there's a new scan before I toss back to you. I want to just see where that looked on the actual rehappening of the wave here. We'll ratchet it back up, and you can see, yeah, it's still there. Very broad, but moving there right along the Snyder Freeway, in fact. I'll keep an eye on it. If anything develops, I'll let you know.
All right. Certainly a push of wind moving toward the Middletown area over toward Old Henry. So if you're familiar with that area, we've got a push of wind. Can't rule out some rotation showing up. And as Brian mentioned, at this point, it's broad. But if it can tighten up, that's when we'd be more concerned with the potential for a tornado. And that's why that storm and the warning tag had the threat of tornado possible. And a lot of these today may have that very well. The forward speed is helping out for us, so it's going to be a burst of wind and heavy rain. Most of the rain's not lingering long enough to cause a whole lot of flooding issues, but we do have flood advisories that have recently been issued for Clark and Floyd counties in Indiana with that rain moving through. Back to the radar we go. This is the tornado warning that we sort of came on the air with just after 3 o'clock. This was for eastern parts of Carroll County. You see, it does not include Carrollton, and the bulk of that storm is now just about totally out of Carroll County itself, and that's the reason Carroll County will be dropped from that warning. Outside of that, in the viewing area, we have a number of severe thunderstorm warnings that still have the potential for strong winds. That's the reason behind all of these warnings lined up from Louisville on to the west of us, and that's a push of wind of 50 to 60 mile per hour. In some cases, maybe even higher winds. Pockets of wind can certainly do a lot of damage, regardless if there's a tornado or not. So we don't want to downplay the severe thunderstorm part versus the tornado part. Both are going to be sort of impactful for us today, where we could see some damage, both in the sort of idea that trees could be brought down regardless if there's rotation or not. So let's zoom in. We'll make our way back up the river where we have the strongest storms going on now. Brian's focusing in on Louisville, but I'm going to take you back out across southern Du Bois County, not far from the Ferdinand area, just north of Santa Claus, Indiana. If you're familiar with Holiday World, you know that area. This is going to be right along Interstate 64. This moves just north of Leopold and over toward Leavenworth, where we have some gusty winds. They've eased just a bit as they've moved out of Perry County into far western parts of Crawford County. I'm going to drag the radar over, so bear with me as we pan the radar through the severe thunderstorm warning. And I'll just mention that the tornado warning for Carroll County is no longer. So the severe thunderstorm warnings are what we have on the map. We continue to track across Interstate 64, pockets of strong wind not far from Corydon. We have a whole network of SkyTrack cameras, one of those strategically placed in Corydon, that will show some of those winds rolling in. I can show you what those SkyTrack cameras look like, and we have a number of them showing up. I can point out that not only from Bardstown, where they're clear at this point, but as you work your way even through the Louisville area, this is our Kentucky Kingdom camera. Heavy rain moving here in Louisville. With that, we have additional showers and thunderstorms that will be approaching. This is New Albany. And you can see a little bit of wind, but more rain than anything there. Again, on the far edge of this, moving in, the downtown SkyTrack cam shows the barge coming under the bridges, but it also shows a dark and gray sky with some heavy rain falling across southern Indiana, as well as Kentucky. From Jeffersonville, we're looking back across, there you see the water tower, and this is Paristown. Rain and wind is just now starting to pick up a bit more in Paristown, but the wind is still somewhat calm. A little more wind now over in New Albany, and you can see that from this view of the SkyTrack camera. The rain is picking up as well. We'd expect that as the storms move in from the north. So New Albany, Corydon, over toward Borden and Starlight, seeing the heaviest wind and rain at this point as we track these storms closer to the Ohio River. Brian?
Yeah, I'm going to keep that up too on that view of New Albany for a while. We monitor that storm. We have a big list here too of the flood advisories that just came out. So this is going to be a common theme. They're just one step below where you get into a flash flood warning type of a level. I'll bring up where those are at. And again, these have been drifting in from the storms from earlier. So a lot of different warnings that I know you guys are looking at. But again, these are going to be the flood advisories are out anywhere in that greenish shade there. So that will include several of our counties, if not all, that are located there along the Ohio River itself. And Ryan, we've been talking about some of these tree damage reports coming in. You've got some images of it now.
Yeah. From the Wave Weather app, thanks to Deb in Scottsburg, Indiana. She says a big tree branch, you see it here, fell on her neighbor's house. So you can always, of course, send these photos in safely if you can to the Wave Weather app, or, of course, that big red text box I posted on the Wave Weather Facebook page. Where have we had damage reports like tree limbs and trees down? Well, across Jackson County from near Medora a little bit earlier to Caruthersville, and then once again a little bit closer to Clark County. They're right on 65 near Sellersburg, and you can kind of see right in the middle of that would be the Scottsburg area where we got that photo from. So it's kind of the central corridor of 65 where we've had a lot of these damage reports here, Kev.
All right, we've got other damage reports coming in. Multiple trees and and power lines down reported over in the Goshen area. This is around Highway 1793, Reading Road. That's the general area. They've got the road completely blocked in some places there over at 1739. So just know that parts of northeast Jefferson and Oldham County up near Goshen has had some strong enough winds to down some trees and power lines. Be careful. Stay away from those down lines. We're going to continue, even though there are no tornado warnings for our area at this point. We're going to continue with our coverage as we track these storms through Jefferson County, and then we'll dive back into some of the day's news. But let's go back to the radar view. I want to show as these storms press across parts of southern Indiana, from the southern part of Clark County through Floyd County, back into Harrison, northern parts of Meade County. This is all going to be pushing into central Kentucky. So areas to our south have seen no rain at this point, but you're going to have one quick punch. For those in Bedford, Seymour, North Vernon, Madison, Scottsburg, Austin, even toward Borden, Salem, Paoli, your threat of severe weather has ended. That's how quick this is. It's going to be fast moving. It's in and it's out, and you won't have to worry about it long. Damage reports are going to be isolated, but there will be some, and we've already seen them. We have trees down in Pekin, Indiana. We had hail in Borden. We know we've got trees and power lines down now in the Goshen area, and you saw some of the reports coming in from the Wave Weather app where trees have even done some damage to people's property and homes. That said, again, we continue to track the severe thunderstorm warning across parts of Louisville, and I'm going to zoom back into that so you can see these winds moving in. Notice the strongest wind gust at the airport at this point has been just 29 miles an hour. That's very tolerable. Those storms are moving in. This will be the strongest push of wind, so we may increase that just a bit. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue with a tornado possible across eastern Jefferson County. The velocity on that, let's go back to that, and I'll just point out that there's nothing tight. There's no tight pocket of rotation, no gate-to-gate wind that we're looking at. So this is broad, but it is still some strong winds, and that's why we had in Goshen some of those down trees and power lines. That could still be the case moving now toward Crestwood, Middletown, and eventually toward Simpsonville. Also, Simpsonville is a place we have one of our SkyTrack cameras. Brian's taking a closer look at some of these storms. Brian?
All right, thanks, Kevin. One of the aspects of it we have, not only from our network of cameras we have from SkyTrack, but also not only from the viewers, too. I should mention that are seeing your photos safely when able to do so. Ryan's keeping an eye on that feed. But we also have our own storm tracker that is out right now, and they are located. They're in the middle of this mess as you head into areas just across the river into downtown, heading north there. I'm not sure the road they're on. It may be off of Clark County, eastern Clark County, but I'm not totally sure on that because we'll get an update on them where they're at. They're hugging the side of the storm at the moment. Okay, they're right on the side of the storm where you can see the heavy rain at one point did fall in that area as they're making that journey. They're into a good chunk of the northeast part of the county, right along, again, the Ohio River. We'll be checking on his feed. We'll come back around to him just a second. Glad he's at least in a spot that he isn't too much to worry about. But look at the warnings here. I'm going to get rid of the radar. Kevin, this is like just about every single location that we've got here. Big fan, if you will, of all of Louisville, all of Jefferson County anyway, all of just about all Bullitt County and all of Meade.
Yeah, and that's what I was saying is we have this whole massive rain moving in, and with that they've also issued some flash flood warnings with that too. You'll notice that the heavy rain will first impact parts of Ripley County, so you're going to see that back up to the north, but the strongest push of wind still to come across the Ohio River, and that means parts of Meade County, Breckenridge, Hardin, Bullitt, the rest of Jefferson, all now under that severe thunderstorm warning. And that will be in place until 4:30 as we bring these storms through the metro area. So that includes Louisville, PRP, Valley Station. That's a zone that we will watch. Wind with that will be in pockets, so not everybody sees the same amount of wind, but as we've reported, we have a number of areas that have had pockets of wind and hail, and with that, we've seen some damage. And that's what we will continue to expect. This isn't for everybody, but some places will experience some of the stronger winds with this as we move this through. We'll continue with our weather coverage as we bring the storms through Jefferson County, and then we will get to some of the day's news as we move these past Jefferson. So we'll stick with it for just a little while longer with you, because we know these storms are moving through at a rough time. The afternoon rush is about to begin. You can see some of the heavy rain falling. Some of the pockets of wind have been noted. We've had large trees down in some areas, including Washington County, Indiana. This was the latest report not far from Blue River. Large tree blocking Honey Run Road. So one of the smaller roads there, but nonetheless enough wind to down some trees, causing some problems. Again, 29-mile-per-hour wind gusts Louisville. We have been hot. We have been humid. We certainly have the fuel needed for these storms. We also have, in addition to that, enough wind shear that some of these storms have the potential to rotate. And that's why some of the storms in our area are coming with the tornado possible tag. And the greatest rotation threat off to our north and east will be, in some cases, tornado warnings. And that's what we've seen today. So this is playing out sort of as expected. As these storms continue to move to the south, you have to realize they're dealing with a whole lot of energy there too. So these storms will continue to maintain their intensity. They will not be weakening as they push past Louisville. And in fact, in some cases, they may ramp up or intensify, giving some folks some of those sharp blasts of wind. One of those over across parts of Harrison County, and Brian has zoomed into that. Brian?
Yeah, that's one way we can look at that is just by looking at the wind fields and monitoring all the bright colors we look at in this case here based on their approach toward the radar beam. That tells us we do certainly have even some downburst signatures there around Leavenworth where they've had some of the wind surging there. We need to watch it. But in general, the highest wind pockets are going to be found around Corden all the way into northern side there into Perry County and crossing close to Breckenridge at times. Let me try to bring up for just a brief moment. This is going to be the SkyTrack camera there into Corden, Indiana. I got that punched up, and we'll take a look at that here in just a second to see what it looks like there on its feed. And again, this is where some of the stronger winds earlier on, at least, were indicating they're heading right in that direction. So hang on one tight. Give me a second. We'll bring that up for y'all. Let's see. There it is. Again, these are moving at a pretty good clip. So some of the wind reports you're going to get are going to be very impressive with these storm cells as they move in. Looking live into Corden, Indiana. We'll be able to bring that up. Let's see if we can get it to load.
And I'll tell you another one while you're looking at the SkyTrax, Brian, would be the Simpsonville camera. That one looks like they could be getting some heavy wind too.
Okay, well, it is not, for some reason, does not want to load on here. So this is downtown Louisville, in case you're wondering, by the way. This is looking from areas in downtown. There's some blue sky overhead as the storms are drifting off to the east. We'll try to get a SkyTrack camera up of portions there of Corden in just a second. But the feed seems to be having probably some issues with the lightning coming through and the wind. Surprise, surprise. We all get affected by it. They do too, I guess, when it comes to technology. Some of the pockets of winds that we were tracking, though, as it came through Corden, drifting at times, more of an east-west fashion, drifting, if you will, like a snake all the way into areas near Shively. Some pockets of strong winds indicated there. Same story as you get into the Middletown area and southern part of Oldham County. That's been holding its own, but it's not necessarily a rotation signal like we had with its broad rotation early on. But still, some downburst winds embedded in that. Oh, you bet. That is certainly the case. Let me run through at least some of what we got on the rain gauges. Now, this is as of the report we had not too long ago with some of the gauges in town. This does include today's rain, so you're getting about a quarter to more than 3/4 in Prospect. You can see the darker green reflecting that, and also a little more than 3/10 of an inch of rain there as you head just north of Middletown near the Shelbyville Road exit. Notice the southern part of Jefferson County. Well, you guys have been relatively untouched so far, right? Well, as you can see here by looking at all this mess coming our way, it's all coming toward you and in your direction. So this is going to be a big-time travel mess scenario. Traffic is going to come to a complete crawl into the Louisville area for 65, the Watterson, the Snyder Freeway. That will all be just very much loaded with heavy traffic here for a while. So if this is part of your route, is heading south into maybe in Shepherdsville and Dubois County, it is going to be a slow go as these downpours continue to drift more and more down to the south of the Ohio River. So hopefully soon we'll be able to clear clear some Indiana counties out of this, but we're not quite there yet. And you got a video that came in, Ryan.
Yeah, this is from just west of Austin, Indiana here. This is from Crystal Money Robinson here. Thank you to Crystal for sending this in. As this loops, you'll be able to see a big burst of wind that toppled over some of this pool patio furniture here and really made a mess of everything. It's about a 33-second long video here. You can see the trees and the bushes in the background. Here it comes. Kaboom! Look at that. It almost looks like some sort of microburst situation there, the way that hit so suddenly there. Again, this is west of Austin in Scott County, Indiana. And we do have an update on power outages. By the way, you can see some counties lighting up, including this is going to be Oldham County, 1,800 folks without power there, 8.3% of Oldham County without power right now. This is Jefferson County, Indiana, about 131 customers, 0.7. And this is south of the storms, but just so you know, Greene County does have a 1.3% customer power outage. Here in Louisville right now, not lighting up just yet, about 296 customers without power, guys. So we'll watch as these power outage numbers come in. If we get more video like we saw there from Crystal west of Austin, Indiana, we would assume that this is going to light up pretty well here in the next few minutes, guys.
All right, Pewee Valley reporting some damage coming in out of Oldham County. We have trees blocking the entire roadway on West Mount Zion Road. Again, that's near Abbott Glen Drive, if you're familiar with that area. Oldham County has been hit. We also had Goshen with trees down, blocking roads there, power lines down. Ryan mentioning some of those outages. So it's not out of the question that within this severe thunderstorm warning that we have moving across the area, the potential is there for those pockets of heavy wind. They won't be everywhere. And in fact, you can see the airport's only recorded 29-mile-per-hour winds. So let's zoom back in. I'm going to go back in storm by storm as we work our way up this. We'll start with Metro Louisville, the highest population. We zoom in. Let me put the velocity on so we can see where we have the greatest potential for some of those pockets of heavy wind. And in that, you can see not far from the Linden area, bringing in some heavy wind flowing through there, moving right along 64 down toward J-Town and Middletown. You'll experience a pocket of heavy wind. Another one over near the Shively area, likely affecting PRP, moving toward Iroquois Park, eventually Okolona. You could be in for a little blast of some stronger wind. That said, we also have winds that extend outside of the metro. Our temperatures have cooled down 5 degrees in the last few minutes. Areas of heavy rain moving across southern parts of Floyd County. Also, working your way into southern parts of Harrison County, just north of Brandenburg, not far from New Amsterdam, some strong winds there. Those are some areas that we're watching along that severe thunderstorm warning. And then we have the additional warning that's now, again, outlined in black. That's an indicator with the tag or threat tornado possible. That's moving through the Middletown area. Some broad rotation showing up there, but nothing overly concerning. Another pocket of heavy wind moving just past the Raymond Hill area. Could approach Shelbyville right along 64. Brian?
All right, one of the aspects we talked about this line of storms moving through that's been producing wind. We got the gusts that came in now from Ollie International, 32 miles per hour was its peak gust, but still dealing with storms approaching them, so that could easily still get increased. But look at the temperature difference here. You've got up radius to right around 90 degrees as you move across Bardstown all the way to Columbia into the southern side of Louisville, and only in the 70s and 60s at times into southern areas of Indiana. So that is the boundary we're going to be watching. There's still plenty of fuel. It is 3:36 in the afternoon in July. There's plenty of fuel for these to work with. It's an issue. When does the wind catch up and push the front down? The wind hasn't really caught up with this boundary yet. It's slowly starting to do so. It's lagging a bit. These storms got a little excited and got fired off right away around the lunch hour, and eventually the front will organize this into a much more of a threat of heavier bands of rain and some damaging winds. So we're not at the end of this yet. We're just seeing in some pockets there where it may ease at times, but unlike what most of you here in Wave Country are dealing with when we deal with storms that move in at night, they tend to weaken and fall apart. This is a different story. We're at max heating of the day, so now it's an issue of can you at least get some rain-cooled air for a minute to calm things down. Otherwise, you'll be dealing with a very noisy setup as we head into the remainder here for the afternoon with heavy rain, gusty showers and thunderstorms, and even an isolated tornado. That tornado warning, by the way, in Owen County continues there, Kevin. I know it's not technically into wave country, but it's right up against us. But that's going to be an issue as you head into just north of Lexington, because that signal's been holding on since it started before it entered Kentucky.
Well, not only that, it's now observed.
Okay.
So they continue to extend that tornado warning. So that is just a little bit of ways from us, moving across parts of Owen County. This was the storm that clipped parts of Carroll County, but you can see that storm with a new tornado warning extension on that. That storm is now observed, and that's for Grant, Owen, and Pendleton counties. So it's just outside of our viewing area, but we know some folks in Owen County rely on us for weather information. So just know if you're hearing that, Owen County, you should be in your tornado safe place. Other pockets of wind rolling through the Louisville area will continue drifting off to the south. Flash flood warnings for parts of Ohio starting to come out as well, not far from the Cincinnati area. You can see they're lined up with a number of tornado warnings. The greatest potential for tornadoes would be off to our north and east. However, for us, we can still see some strong wind, and that's what we've been tracking throughout the afternoon. With that, we've had some power outages that have been reported. You can see across parts of Jefferson County, Indiana, Oldham County, and even in places where they have no storms down in Greene County, Kentucky. The futurecast will show that these storms settle farther to the south, and that's what we're going to notice through this afternoon. So by 5, 6 o'clock, these storms are south of Louisville and continuing their trek across the southern part of our viewing area by 8, 9 o'clock tonight, and then they're out of here. And that'll set the stage for a calmer Wednesday and a much better looking forecast as we approach the middle and latter part of the week. Our metro traffic cameras also show wet roads all across Jefferson County. Traffic is moving slow, but it's not stopped anywhere, so that's some good news as well. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke.
Yeah, perfect timing, Kevin, because I'm getting ready to talk about traffic here. This is I-64 near Lanesville, Indiana. Multiple vehicle crash there. They're not sure if it's due to the storm, but again, this is going to be on 64, 114 mile marker near Lanesville, Indiana, according to the fire department out there. Also got some new photos in here from Shelby. This is Plantation, the Plantation neighborhood off Westport Road, northeast Jefferson County. You can see the big tree down there. We've got another photo just into us from Norton in downtown Louisville, literally just down the street from our studios here. And you can see that kind of intense looking lower cloud there. And then once again, if you didn't see this burst of wind that moved through just west of Austin, Indiana, a little bit earlier today there from Crystal, causing some, of course, patio furniture damage at her place there in Scott County, Indiana. As always, if you have photos or videos, you can submit them via the Wave Weather app and, of course, in that big red text box that I posted and pinned to the top of the Wave Weather Facebook page. Kevin and Brian.
All right. I just want to mention, too, I just was looking at the rainfall that's here behind me. I was able to get a rate in of 2.38 located near the Waterston Expressway at around Shively, and this is slowly but surely making its time through Jefferson County, but it's not as fast as we would like to have it, of course, but it is at a slant, so watch out as it continues to expand. Hydroplaning concerns for the Waterston 65 area, the portion of it that's open, and then obviously as you get into the Snyder Freeway, it's going to be difficult to travel in this environment, and I'm speaking to you, 6 Mile Lane, Hurst Farm Parkway area now. Go ahead and avoid that. Obviously avoid around areas around where the can opener is. That's going to be spots that are going to be filling up if they haven't already with heavy rainfall at that kind of a rate. These are true tropical downpours in the metro right now. It'll take, I would say, another 45 minutes to get this to ease more to the south than east, but until that happens, there will be a lot of issues of traveling. Be careful because your tires can lose contact with the roadway. It doesn't take long. Reducing your speed is one of the first things you can do and set up to prevent yourself from crashing there. We'll monitor that and some of the rain gauges too, Kevin, as we evolve in.
Well, I was just looking at some of the MPING reports coming in. Flooded roads and some stranded cars, I think, over in the Middletown area. So here we go again. I mean, how many times have we seen this this year? So a number of times. Far west, we looked just south of Evansville, more storms starting to fire, again, moving into the untouched environment where they will wind up becoming severe. And then closer to home, you can see these thunderstorms moving through. So places like Hardin County, Nelson County, Washington, LaRue, get ready. You would be next in line. No one's going to dodge this line of storms. Not everybody gets damage out of it, but there will be pockets of damage within it, and that will continue pressing through the viewing area as we roll through the late afternoon and evening hours. We're going to continue to track this through the Louisville area. Our wind has not been so bad reported in Louisville, but we know we have damage on both sides of us. We have damage in Lanesville, Borden picked up some hail. We also have Pekin with some trees down. All of that's centered across parts of Indiana. The storms are well past you. Goshen up in far western and northern parts of Oldham County, not far from Jefferson County. You had wind damage, a number of trees down, power lines down, covering roads there. This continues to sink to the south. So let's look back at some of the pockets of wind that we have. That's the most important thing I can show you at this point, is where we have the greatest wind potential. So I'm going to keep the view very broad, and then I'm going to zoom back in as we identify some of the stronger winds. So when we look at the scopes, I can look at the, again, velocity on these to show where we have the greatest potential. And let me just pause that. And as we pause the radar, you'll notice, there it is, where we have some of the stronger winds. And you can see some pockets of wind moving toward Valley Station. We track that over. Wind just southern parts of Oldham County, Shelby County, just south of Simpsonville. Additional pockets of wind moving through Shelbyville and Pleasureville. Those areas have some gusty winds. I'm just scanning the radar view, looking for sort of the brightest colors in some ways near Leavenworth. Again, we look for signatures and colors on the radar to give us an indication whether we could be dealing with rotation, straight line winds, downburst winds, all of that. The radar can help really guide us on where we could have the strongest winds. So what we're looking at across Jefferson County, the airport sits right here. 36 mile per hour winds, the latest gust. That's with this little band moving through. So it would be obvious that the stronger winds with that would be near the Valley Station area, moving across southwest Jefferson County at this point. Wouldn't be surprised to see a few trees down there. Tougher to pick out when you're looking at the reflectivity. That is why the velocity is very helpful during scenarios like this. So we have winds gusting to 36 at the airport, stronger pocket of wind across southwest Jefferson County. That would extend from Iroquois Park over to Valley Station, PRP, points further to the south as you move down toward the West Point area, which is where we have the radar, so coming out of Fort Knox. You'll notice additional rain and heavy rain moving across southern parts of Harrison County. Brian, I see you've got some of the wind popped up across that exact area I'm talking about.
Yeah, exactly. Looking at the wind field there, watching the Waterston all the way past Iroquois Park, as you mentioned, down Dixie Highway, National Turnpike area as well. I want to take a quick scan, if I'm able to here. I want to show you guys on some of the feeds we've been looking at. It's like another... Okay, hold on one second. We'll get the storm tracker up.
Severe coming out for Crawford Perry.
Okay. So just west of here on the just kind of extension down on that line, it sounds like, as these storms are tracking through from that area. Let me show you what it looks like, say, as an example of right around Fern Valley is one of the areas. It's hard to tell from that one, but it's hard to see anything in some of these areas, Kevin, because of the heavy rainfall that is absolutely just tremendous at the moment, those 2.5 rainfall rates that we've had in the area. But again, this is more of a live feed of the camera, and they're moving. But boy, you see a lot of that water just being thrown up and being sprayed. And look how many times lightning is lighting up the skies too, as that's drifting overhead. So again, just be careful. And a lot of folks trying to come home and eat tonight are probably a little bit late getting to dinner. It looks like that's kind of a mess out there. Kevin, you got that new warning, right? It's
going to take a little while. Yeah, the new warning we mentioned coming out for Crawford Perry in Indiana. You can see that warning again extends across parts of the area. Let me go back to our home view. You'll be able to see that a little better as we zoom back in. You can see it was just extended a little bit farther to the west from where we had it. So that would be, again, parts of Perry County, moving into extreme southern Crawford County, and then down into the Meade County area of Kentucky. So that is the severe thunderstorm warning that was most recently issued, that until 4 o'clock Eastern Daylight Time. We're going to keep with our coverage as we roll these storms through the Louisville area, and then we will continue with nonstop weather coverage on our live stream. We developed a 24/7 weather channel a while back. Now it's been over, almost 2 years ago or so. And with that, we'll be able to continue with nonstop weather coverage, but also give you the day's news on our broadcast. So at 4 o'clock, we'll switch back over and start doing news. And then that'll give everybody sort of in line in the newsroom the ability to get prepared. So we've got about another 13 minutes. We'll continue with our weather coverage. And then if you're looking for the nonstop weather coverage, just just have the Wave Weather app. You can tap on the top of that where it says Watch Now. You'll be able to watch us continue with the weather coverage as we push these storms to the south. And, of course, we'll have weather coverage within our newscasts, too. That'll be the plan. So let's zoom back in, and you'll notice here in Louisville, we've seen very little in the way of power outages, but our winds still cranking up. 36-mile-per-hour winds at the latest report. I zoom back in to pretty much the cluster of severe thunderstorm warnings that we have. Notice the storms are moving, so the threat of flooding is a little less than what we had seen in previous storms. And that's two reasons. One, they're moving faster, and two, there's nothing building in behind it that will move in. So this is it. Once this passes, the threat of severe weather ends. That's good news. It's in and it's out. The bad news is there are pockets of heavy wind causing some problems for some folks. So when we pause the radar, and I'll just stop it there, and then we'll go back to the scopes. And you can see we have a number of information sources. Your reports are very helpful. So, again, if you have the Wave Weather app and you're taking photos that we can see and submitting those are super helpful. We appreciate that. Your reports through MPing or CocoRa's, we see those as well. So those are very helpful to us as we continue to look at what's happening across the entire area. When we look at the velocity on the scopes, we can point out that we do have those pockets of heavy wind moving through parts of Jefferson County. A while ago, we indicated Valley Station would be seeing some strong wind. We also have a little bit of wind passing by the J-Town area. Simpsonville seeing not only wind, but a little bit of minor rotation there. Same story over towards Shelbyville. So some strong winds there. Our Simpsonville camera may give us a look at some of that wind. It's just about to move past there, though, but that would be a good indicator to keep an eye on. So we'll look at that. The strong winds continue back where we had that warning extended for parts of southern Crawford County into Meade County, and you can see that push of wind coming in as well. Not far, just south of Leavenworth, moving toward Brandenburg. That's another area of concern with a push of wind. You can notice the lightning count. I took the bolts off so we could actually see the data on the radar, but we do have plenty of lightning with these storms as well. That will continue. So that's a look at what we have. Power outages continue to build. Oldham County seeing some of the higher outages that we have, 8.3% with nearly 2,000 customers without power at this point. The storms will continue to push southbound. That happens through the rest of the afternoon and evening, and with that, we'll clear things out as the night wears on. Tomorrow, a much more pleasant day, and likely, arguably, even better by Thursday. Lower heat, lower humidity. You can see on our traffic cameras all across the metro, most of the roads are wet, and we do have slower than average traffic. It's going to take some time to get around the area. Brian?
All right, Kevin, I've been watching some of the wind fields there as it moves across areas around Valley Station, Fairdale, all the way back into Okolona. At times, as we've gathered, what we call is a kind of a sideways S shape, like the letter S on your keyboard, and it kind of sneaks its way through Louisville. And this is where the bottom part of the S has been more dominant, indicating a strong surge of that wind that is moving right into the Jefferson Memorial Forest. That wind will continue to surge into Bullitt County. Now, the good news is we've already got warnings in place for that, so they're in good shape to monitor that as it moves on by. I do not see anything tornadic with that, but it had a good gust of wind. The airport has updated its wind gust to 36 miles per hour is the new number now on its peak wind as this western side of the cell is moving on by. And yes, very heavy rainfall, not to mention lightning. Let me turn off the radar, in fact, and just show you just the lightning strikes alone just into that area. As you get into the central parts of Jefferson County, you're dealing with, right now anyway, the radar is estimating, I would say, close to about, I would say 10,000 strikes all for the whole group. And for the metro, we'll see what we get for the metro. Coming in at about 508, I believe, in the last 10 minutes. So that in itself was quite a bit. So this is a very electrical line of storms all the way up and down the line that we've got. Here's the new severe thunderstorm warning. You just heard the alarm go off probably in the background. This is going to be for parts of our eastern side of the metro. This is going to take you into Anderson County more so than anything for right around portions there of Shelby County and Franklin County as well. This will be out until 4 45 after the hour. It's a severe thunderstorm warning. It's heading mainly to the southern part of the capital as well. And Kevin, my system is locked up, so I'm going to send it back over to you.
You're having the same problem.
It has a 3 warning limit for the day, and I think we hit that already. So
yeah, these busy days tax the system. Right. That warning also goes down into parts of Washington County, not far from Springfield, and you can see that on the map. We mentioned that these would likely get extended. You can also see that tornado warning just north of Lexington get extended as well, outside of our viewing area, by the way. Severe thunderstorm warnings again issued now for parts of the area, and that includes, when we take a closer view of that, that would be for parts of Franklin County and also parts of the northern half of Washington County. That was the warning Brian mentioned until 3:45 or 4:45 this afternoon. So almost another hour, giving plenty of lead time on these warnings. The latest tornado warning that was issued would have been for Harrison and Scott in Kentucky. So that's, again, the storm well away from us. We track these storms through Jefferson County with strong winds for another 5 minutes, and then we'll go to our live stream. Ryan's going to get set up in there so we can continue with our nonstop weather coverage as we continue moving these south. So if you're looking to watch just weather and weather only, you'll want to make sure you have the Wave Weather app or the Wave News app. Click on the live stream for weather information. You can find that. It's called Wave Weather Now. It's Louisville's first 24/7 weather channel, and we'll be there making sure we keep you updated. And we'll also be in the studio giving you updates throughout our newscast. But you can see that heavy rain now shifting past Floyd County, Clark County, southern Indiana, almost totally in the clear with the exception of southern Harrison County. That's the lone part still with Indiana that has a threat of some bad weather and mainly just rain. So it could be a flooding issue more than anything. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue to press to our south, and that's going to be the case this afternoon. With these storms moving through, there is a tremendous amount of lightning that we've been watching. And with that lightning also can come some problems. So just know that with that, you're going to have to pay close attention if you have to spend any time outside. If you can let these storms pass, that's going to be the better thing to do, because the lightning count within our view within the last, say, 10 minutes is up to 1,700 volts. And that's impressive with these storms passing by. That means they do have a little ice in them. It means we could still see some hail within them. The radar shows the heavy rain. The velocity gives us an idea of where we have the greatest wind. So best chance to see that would be looking at this velocity scope. And as we scan across southern parts of Harrison County, not far from northern Meade, that's a pretty good burst of wind just north of the Brandenburg area. Maybe the strongest burst of wind we've seen on the radar within the last couple of scans. We also have some strong winds over near the Franklin County area, approaching Frankfort, capital city. We also have a pocket of wind passing by the Simpsonville area. So let's zoom into each of these. I'm going to keep this on, and we'll see if we can't zoom in to show you at least a few of the places that may be impacted by some of this wind. We've got just a couple of minutes here, and then we'll do a quick round to see what everybody else has in the Weather Center. Again, we're not far from Brandenburg. We're right along 228 and 448. This is going to be some strong wind there. Back to our home view we go, and I can sort of pan out and show you some of those stronger winds that are moving across not only southern Harrison and northern Meade, but back into the Louisville area. And with that, you're going to notice as we grab the sort of scope, and once I grab that, I can take it to the metro. And we'll push this right over here. And the strongest winds for us would be extreme southwest Jefferson County and over not far from as you work your way toward Hillview. So we're seeing some strong wind returns there. So that's what we have going on in the metro. Severe thunderstorm warnings will continue for a bit longer. We're coming up on just about 2 minutes left in our nonstop weather coverage on Wave. That will continue on our stream. But before we end it, let me go over to Brian and see if he has any additional information.
Yeah, we're just going to be watching this and doing what we call like a more of a triage to this whole setup as it evolves over the river into Kentucky. We do have the wind fields posted here. Notice it is more of a southwest flow feeding these showers and storms, but it gets a little more on the wonky side as you get east of 65, and that's where we've had most of your tornado warnings have been on the eastern side of this line, in and around Cincinnati, Ohio, and straight down 75 in Kentucky. That's our main concern that we've had, is because the winds do back a bit more as you head a little east of 65. I-35 itself. Otherwise, most of this is going to be just being fed to provide more downburst winds, which we're notorious with around here, and some heavy rain and hail as well, Ryan.
Yeah, we've got some new video in from South Louisville. This is from Charlotte Lewis via the Wave Weather app. You can see just how crazy the storm was down there with all the wind and the rain. And, of course, we had this video from Austin, Indiana, earlier just west of there from Crystal. Thanks for sending in your videos. Continue to do so on the Wave Weather app and, of course, the Wave Weather Facebook page where we've got that red text box there, Kevin.
All right, severe thunderstorm warning continues for a good chunk of Jefferson County. Points to the south. You see it flashing. That is until 4:30. So that severe thunderstorm warning will be in place for another half hour. We've seen our winds gusting to 41 miles an hour here in Louisville. Some strong winds approaching the radar at about 400 feet. Winds estimated at about 60 to 65 miles an hour, moving across southwestern parts of Jefferson County, northern Hardin County, into Bullitt County. So we do have some strong winds that we're working with this afternoon. We could wind up with some wind damage. We're going to continue updating throughout our newscast, but if you're looking for nonstop weather coverage, Wave Weather Now will be the place to be. Brian and Ryan will be tackling that, and I'll see you coming up here in just a couple of seconds on Wave News at 4. We appreciate you watching.
With Alert Day coverage now, this is Wave News.
Pull furniture flying near Austin, Indiana, as a round of storms moves through wave country on this alert day. That wind is strong. This is Wave News at 4. I'm Dawn G.
And I'm Scott Reynolds. The active weather continues at this hour. Reports of many trees down and hundreds without power.
Let's get to Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett and your Wave Weather Alert Day forecast. Kevin?
Yeah, hey there, Dawn. This is the current radar view. Severe thunderstorm warning still moving across parts of Jefferson County. You'll also see that green outline. That is a flash flood warning for Jefferson County until 7 o'clock. So we're also seeing some flooding in addition to the strong winds. Our winds are easing downtown, but continuing off to our south. Let me pause the radar and I'll show you the latest warnings that we have across the entire region. They stretch from the far western parts of our viewing areas. You work your way into Breckinridge County, Meade County, southern Harrison. Outside of southern Harrison, the rest of Indiana in the clear at this point. Most of the focus is off to our south, moving across Jefferson, Bullitt, and then areas moving into Spencer, Shelby, down into Washington and Franklin counties. Even a few tornado warnings to the north and east. We have had some reports of damage today. The damage has mainly been wind related. With those, what we have noted would have been trees down, power lines down, and here we go again with a tornado warning that's just now being issued across the area. This is going to include parts of Bullitt, Hardin, and Meade counties. So our coverage goes on here with nonstop weather coverage. Again, tornado warning coming out from Shepherdsville to West Point. This is going to go until 4:30. This is radar indicated, so this is not a confirmed tornado, but with the wind field that we have and the winds that we have moving across the radar at this point, what we can tell you is that we will wind up seeing some strong winds. Whether they're actually rotating or not, we'll have to wait and see. That tornado warning, again, embedded within the original severe thunderstorm warning that we had across the region. Let me zoom back into that, and then I'll stop the radar again. All of these storms contain a tremendous amount of lightning and wind potential. That doesn't mean those winds actually touch down on the ground, but it means that it has the potential to. I'll stop the radar, and I'll pull back up the velocity that we have with that. And this is going to be right over the radar, which is very tough for the radar to see, by the way, because it's on top of it, and the radar beam goes out. So what we're dealing with is this area of rotation very close to the West Point area. Here's what we know about the wind field at that area. Just about 15 minutes ago, the sample of winds coming in by the radar indicated just about 400 feet above the ground, which isn't all that high. We noted that we had 60 to 65 mile per hour winds coming into that. Obviously, as they sink to the south, they're moving into an environment that is prime for severe weather. It's been untouched throughout the day today. So we continue with seeing the rotation right over the radar near West Point. And this is moving off to the east within that, out ahead of that main line of storms. So with that, we have the potential to see the tornado potential. Again, I keep saying potential because it's not observed, it's not confirmed, it is radar indicated. Our wind gusts have been strong in places. If you've been watching us, we've been tracking these pockets of heavy wind. All we have to have is the pocket of wind to start to rotate, and that triggers the tornado warnings. And that's what we're seeing. A little bit of red and green showing up just across the border of far eastern Meade County. I mean, in Meade County, your sirens may be going off, but this is a very, very small part of Meade County. It literally is right on the county border of Meade and northern Hardin County, very close to West Point, very close to the radar site itself. There is another pocket of strong winds right along the Ohio River on the southern edge of Harrison County and northern Meade County. Not far from Brandenburg, so we'll track that as well. But that part's not rotating. This part is, and you can see that showing up just west of West Point. We've had a number of power outages that have been reported throughout the day as well. The watch is in place until 10 o'clock, but most important would be the warnings that we have. This is the lone tornado warning in our viewing area. It encompasses several of our counties, but only parts. So extreme northern Hardin County. So here's the deal. When the emergency managers push the sirens to go off, it may go off for the entire county. But in reality, who's being affected by this is a very small area of Hardin County. That would be extreme northern Hardin County, extreme eastern Meade County, a bigger chunk of Bullitt County affected with this as this moves closer to the Shepherdsville area. So that'll be the zone to watch. Let me zoom into that, and we'll give some instructions on what those folks should be doing as we work our way across parts of Bullitt County. So again, the storm is not in Bullitt County just yet, but it eventually will be moving that way. Notice the bowing nature of that radar echo, and I can show you the wind on that as we take a look at just the pure velocity. This is the rotation that we're seeing moving across the radar. That, as it continues its eastward trek, would be rolling closer to eventually Shepherdsville if it holds together. But in the meantime, it's going to be across the western half of Bullitt County. So sirens may be sounding in parts of Meade, Hardin, and a chunk of Bullitt County, but just know that the bulk of this warning. So this is on the ground near Fort Knox, so we do know that now it's confirmed. With that said, we're watching right over the radar. Very tough, again, to see by the radar for all intents and purposes because the radar imagery cannot be captured if the storm is on top of the radar. But once this moves away, we'll continue to see it. So the radar is located at Fort Knox. We have weather observers in the Fort Knox area, so obviously they're the ones reporting that there is a tornado on the ground. This is making its way to the east. This will be moving at roughly about 35 to 40 miles an hour. This will be a storm that has the potential of producing damage with the tornado on the ground, so it is observed. This includes parts of Bullitt, the extreme northern part of Hardin. This is north of Muldrow. This is north of, well north of E-Town. You can see the tag coming out here where it says tornado warning observed, and that is an important note. Obviously, it gets no more serious than that. When we have a tornado that's on the ground, you have to put your tornado plan into action. Get to the lowest level. If you are listening from the Fort Knox area, just even in Radcliffe, over into Bullitt County, you have to be at the lowest level. You need to be away from windows, and you need to make sure you're secure until this storm passes. This is a tornado that is on the ground as it makes its way to the east. This tornado is moving eastbound. Again, when this was updated, it was about 10 miles south of Valley Station, and it's now moving east at 45 miles an hour. So this is just south of the Louisville metro area, but barely. I mean, barely south, only 10 miles south of Valley Station. So it will likely miss the southwestern part of Jefferson County, but it's going to move into western Bullitt County within a matter of minutes. Brian?
Okay, so what I'm trying to do with this particular radar beam here, because it's right over the radar beam being at Fort Knox, I'm trying to get a different scan of this located as you get into the radar that's in Mount Washington. And I apologize, sometimes the images can't be great, but if we look carefully, we can see a bit of a hint to it. I'm going to zoom in on this. Right there over portions of West Point looks to be where we've had the likely touchdown. Again, the radar beam is right here that we use normally. So it's right in that little apex, if you will, the corner of the tornado warning that is out. So based on this, let me loop this back just a bit. As it crosses the river and moves toward West Point, it looks like it's briefly enhancing right in that zone. That's going to put you, let me get into a much closer level on this, just east of the radar beam itself, but this is going to be east of Muldrow Hill area, Wilson Road. Let's see, we got the Main Range Road area, and then I'll go a little bit more downstream from that as you head all the way toward Pitts Point, which would be also in the path of that if it holds together, but also Porter River Road, also in the path. Now, the good news, where the radar is that the Weather Service does have, they don't have usually a lot of homes are in that area. It's obviously a military installation set up, but it is something we got to watch as we have a lot of observers being at Fort Knox. A lot of eyes are on this. So Kevin, once it heads over into more of the hilly area in the northern Hardin County and the far southwest side here at Bullitt, that'll be something to watch to see what happens on its observation. We may get a little bit more iffy reports on that as it moves east.
Yeah, we'll see and be curious. No, the good news is it's in a pretty secluded area at this point, moving across Fort Knox, and as it moves into western parts of Bullitt County. But that zone, again, seeing a tremendous amount of lightning. Obviously, the heavy rain, that could obscure the view. So if you're trying to be sort of one of those looky-loos out there, just get in the tornado safe place. Let the storm pass. This storm is observed. This has the potential to cause some problems as it makes its way through far northern Hardin County and pushes into extreme western parts of Bullitt County. Brian, I'll ask you to go to Max 1 and see if you can unfreeze me. I'm sort of locked up at the moment.
Okay.
If you'll take the coverage, I'll move over and unstick my computer.
Okay. Yeah, so what we're looking at again is the radar beams. We have different spots here. Let me switch back to what Kevin was looking at to get you into the Fort Knox area. And it's just now getting a little bit further away from the beam at the moment. Now, we do have a backup setup in the system here that should flag any type of debris signature for us. I haven't seen that marker yet show up, but it may as it gets a little further out from the beam. But as the storm emerges, it's already on the other side of it now. So this is likely going to be just east here of the radar beam itself, heading into areas just northwest of Pitts Point and Porter River Road area. That's one spot we've been watching just south of Highway 44. Now, they've drawn the tornado warning all the way out to include Shepherdsville. So if you're watching Shepherdsville, we don't know yet how this will behave over the next 15, 20 minutes. But if you're in that area all the way down as you head toward the Grove, exiting there just south of the Highway 44 exit, make sure you get into your safe spot just in case until we see how this is going to evolve here as it emerges to the other side of the beam. This is why we have two different radars when it comes to tornadoes that go over radar beams. Is our way to try to track them in a better fashion as they come in over the city itself. But again, that is moving at a good clip there right over the radar beam itself to the east. They did allow for a slight little jog to the southeast. The quick look at the terminal, Kevin, before I give it back to you as we continue to watch how this evolves. You can see the terrain, by the way. This is a very wooded terrain. The radar is going to cover this up. So hopefully there's no one really in the path immediately on it, but it's when it emerges, Kevin, on the other side of this wooded area, that's going to be a concern what will happen next.
Yeah, we've got new severe thunderstorm warnings coming out. While we're focused on the tornado warning, let me bring you up to speed on what's happening. This would be a severe thunderstorm warning coming out for parts of Breckenridge, Grayson, and Hancock counties of Kentucky. That will go in place until 3:45 Central Time, so 4:45. That includes the Short Creek area, working your way over toward Cannons Point and Axtell. This is the Rough River Lake area. So if you're familiar with that part of Grayson County, Breckenridge County, you know where we're talking about. That is a severe thunderstorm warning that is now in place. The lone tornado warning that we have still goes until 4:30, so another 17 minutes on that storm. We zoom back into it to take a look at not only the rotation, but we'll see if we can see any of the debris that may be showing up with that. Tornado on the ground often kicks up debris. The radar recognizes that as something that's foreign, and that sends back a different color, if you will, to the radar palette. And if I go back to our scope, I can look at the debris on that in our debris scope. So this will be a debris detector, and we'll just see if we can't see any of that debris that may be showing up. And I'm getting the warnings popping over that, so it makes it a little tougher to see. So let me move the radar so we can see that. and then we'll jump back to it. So tough to tell, but again, we'd be looking in this general area for debris. That seems to be a pretty large field. It would be more of a tighter debris area, but that is something we'll watch and see how that comes through on the next scan as the radar updates. So we're looking for debris. We're looking at rotation based on the velocity, and we can see that in the scope as well. When we look at the velocity scope, we're looking at winds both toward and away from the radar. Clearly, it's on top of the radar, so that makes it tough, and that's what Brian was mentioning. Once this storm moves just away from the radar, we'll be able to see that a little clearer, but we obviously have winds toward and away from the radar at its location, so we're looking for that tight couplet eventually to move across the county border, moving into far western parts of Bullitt County, which would be the likely spot to see the possible tornado that has been on the ground working its way across the Fort Knox area, as we know, and now likely moving into western parts of Bullitt County. So that would be a zone. In addition to that, some very strong winds with this storm are moving as far south as Gaffney Heights, pushing down toward the Muldrow area, maybe even as far south as working your way toward Radcliffe, seeing at least an outpush of wind from this storm.
And Kevin, while you got that up, it looks like the wind that we've been talking about for a while that was around PRP and around Shively, that's getting out a little bit ahead of this line of that curl in there. So it'll be interesting to see what happens, if that can help in choking off that rotation at all before it has a chance to do much more.
Yeah, new severe thunderstorm warning. This is going to be for Breckenridge County. We'll come back and show you what that looks like. Again, Breckenridge County, including Hardensburg, sort of filling that gap between the two. This is a severe thunderstorm warning until 4:30 Louisville time, 3:30 local time there. Radar indicated possibly 60-mile-per-hour winds. So you work your way south. We had the one near Rough River out toward Axtell, working your way farther to the south, McQuady, and then pushing all the way down into parts of Meade County. So severe thunderstorm warnings surround us. The only tornado warning, which is the most intense because it is observed. I mean, the last report we had, this was a tornado running across Fort Knox, moving at 45 miles an hour.
And they went with an extension to that warning itself to the southeast.
Still observed.
It's going with a severe thunderstorm warning.
Okay.
But it well advanced. Heads up is what they're doing with that.
That's it.
Yeah.
So we go back to the severe thunderstorm warning that's just coming out. Again, this pushes farther to the south and east along that entire line. But with that, as Brian's mentioned, that comes with the tag tornado possible. So at any point, they could trigger the tornado warning with inside the severe thunderstorm warning. 60-mile-per-hour winds. Again, radar indicated on the severe part, but what we know is that the tornado warning that we've been tracking has been observed across parts of northern Hardin County, right across Fort Knox, likely now moving into western Bullitt County. Let's see if we can get velocity on that to see if we see any defined rotation. Boy, it's tough to pick out because it's still so close to the radar view.
Yeah, it is. And even the terminal is not helping a whole lot. But my suspicion is it's very close to Pitts Point. If there's still going to be a rotating setup there around Pitts Point itself to the eastern side of the radar beam, seems to be the spot.
Yeah, and again, Brian's looking at a radar called the terminal radar, comes out of Bullitt County as we zoom back. So we have, it's a much more localized radar. It's not as sort of good as the radar that we would have in Fort Knox, but that radar is rendered useless once the storm is on top of it. So this is sort of a bad scenario of having to see the data from this one radar. So thankfully, we have the one not far from Mount Washington that we can look at as it shoots back to the west and see some of that rotation moving into far western parts of Bullitt County. So there's Pitts Point. This would likely be the rotation that we're tracking. Again, we need a couple more scans from this particular radar to see what that looks like. The tornado warning continues. They've canceled Hardin County out of that, and you can see that polygon sort of revised. Again, pointing out that right near the Pitts Point area would be that rotation, moving east now at 40 miles an hour, so slowing somewhat in its forward motion just a bit. I'm going to recenter this as we lift this back up. We can take a look at some more of that data. I'm going to zoom back into it. This now, again, says radar indicated. So it seems as they have dropped the observed tag on that. And the rotation somewhat has relaxed. Am I reading that correctly?
Well, yeah, when you look at the on the terminal here, I'll show you guys my screen on that. You can see right around Pitts Point, you see how the green just kind of collides into the circulation, and it just eats it away like Pac-Man, if you will. That is the cold air that is wrapped in behind it, and it's no longer allowing for really the updraft to do much more, Kevin. So they may be able to cancel this early if that's the case that I'm seeing here, too.
Boy, some good news there, and that's the atmosphere at work where we have that cold rush of air coming out of the thunderstorms that were moving across southern Jefferson County, pushing in, and that, you know, what thunderstorms don't like is cold air. That sort of shuts them down. So they want that warm, moist air where that air can rise and the storm can mature and really start to take on a life of its own. And it's real hard for these storms to do when they're in a line or near a line of storms. That's why always the forward moving storms have the greatest potential for the rotation. In today's case, this was one of those that was just out ahead, just far enough until it caught up with it. And then once that happened, sort of squashed it, as we can see. And now that the storm is away from the radar, we can really see that it has been sort of diminished in a big way. With that said, it doesn't mean, and we go back, let me just put on the reflectivity once again, because this is the area we're watching, so you can see that rain has sort of overtaken the whole area as well. So with that, we'd want to be closer to the forward area. So we'll be watching additional areas farther to the south to see if any of those would have the potential for rotation. That's where we'd likely see additional thunderstorms that would have the ability to produce any type of rotation or tornadoes out ahead of that. So this will likely be allowed to expire early. The end time now set for 4:30, another 10 minutes. But that is certainly some good news for Shepherdsville, Bardstown Junction, areas along 65, and a good chunk of, Bullitt County. So some good news there. What was a tornado on the ground has dissipated at this point. Indications are that will continue to dissipate as we continue with those thunderstorms moving through. Back to our home view for 1 second. It's 74 degrees in Louisville. We have seen the thunderstorms pass us downtown. Still some flooding going on, but the bulk of the rain is now exiting Jefferson County, pushing to the south. Our threat of severe weather is over. Southern Indiana, your threat of severe weather is over. It is all situated now just south of us at this point. Ryan?
This is the Hill Street Viaduct here near U of L. Folks are driving through very high water. Please don't do that. This is a turnaround, don't drown situation. We've seen multiple vehicles going through this here. So just a word of caution. The viaducts are full near U of L in Old Louisville, just south of downtown here. We've been seeing these vehicles driving through here as our photographer here is on the scene. Again, this is Hill Street in Louisville right now that we're seeing this here. You'll see some video of this likely in later newscasts tonight, Kevin, but please turn around, don't drown. We say it often.
Well, we say it often, and people seemingly never hear us completely because it always happens. Thanks, Ryan. Again, flooding has been part hit in the studio, or if everybody's the storms have passed us. We're back. We can see the severe thunderstorm warning south of Louisville lined up with an extension that continues across parts of Nelson County, northern LaRue, all the way down into central Hardin, including E-Town. This is an extension of the severe thunderstorm warning, just to give plenty of heads up to say, yes, we could have some strong winds pushing in, and that will be the case in pockets, but not for everybody. I'm going to go back along this line and just take you through this. Obviously, we have the tornado warning still for Bullitt County, but the latest scans on that show a diminishing trend. So I'm going to check that first. We look at Pitts Point. This rotation would be just to the east of that, if we even have it at all at this point. I can check the base. Let's go back. I'm going to go back to the scope. It's easier to see on that. We'll look at the velocity. And if we were to have the rotation, it would be in this general area here. And while there's a push of wind, the velocity and the rotation has certainly weakened. This storm no longer has the tag observed, and that's some good news. I'll widen that out. We still have some very strong winds. I mean, that is a pocket of very heavy wind now south of Pitts Point. So while we had the rotation just north, the greatest wind is just south of Pitts Point at this case. And that is is damaging winds. That would cause problems, regardless if the storms are rotating or not. When we see reflectivity like this come back on the velocity, that's an indicator that we could very well have some damaging winds now moving into western parts of Bullitt County. So pay attention to that. The latest warning coming out is now going to include far western parts of Breckenridge County. It also includes chunks of Hancock and Ohio County. That is until 3:45 Central Time, 4:45 Louisville time. Again, on that warning that we were watching, some of the strongest winds moving just south of Pitts Point. We're tracking that closely. We have a Boeing segment that's moving through there. That will eventually approach far western parts of Nelson County, which should take you over closer to, say, Boston. And that would be an area that we watch. So let me recenter this, because while this is the tornado warning, that is weakening just a bit. But when we look at the velocity on this, and I'll try to show it here, this is where we have the greatest potential for wind. Brian, are you looking at that as well?
Yeah, it's like a mini low pressure that is formed out of Pitt's point there, that is allowing for the southern part to be a very dominant flow. So here's your circulation. We're looking at wind fields. We're looking at Bullitt County. Right here is where the tornado warning that was out that we were tracking that had the tornado on the ground for a while. But look what's happening on the backside. You're getting this push here, that wall of red. It's indicating a very strong push of wind on the backside of that boundary that's aiming on the northern side of Clark County. Kevin's right along Highway 65, Interstate 65, all the way into southern Bullitt County, Lebanon Junction as well. That will eventually cross over into Nelson. When I pull it up, the temperatures in this area, the difference really stands out. Fort Knox went from 86 to 79, but E-Town still holding to 86, Bardstown holding in the mid-80s. There is still plenty of fuel right in this area in advance of these storms as they drop in quickly. And this little surge here, backward C-shape, if you will, with the tornado warning at the top of the curl, that's what we need to watch as that kind of advances into Hardin County, southern Bullitt County, and the very western side there of Nelson.
Well, it certainly bears watching with the reflectivity and the velocity showing these signatures. Again, this is a push of wind. This is what the radar sees as wind. Some very strong winds working your way now into western parts of Bullitt County, south of Pitts Point. This will be rolling off to the east as well, impacting eventually Lebanon Junction and maybe over toward the Boston area. So this forward push of wind will arrive first, and then if indeed this pocket of wind is reaching the ground, that would be even more intense wind that you'd have to deal with after the initial push. So again, pay attention, make sure you're away from windows. We've seen pockets of wind like this today down trees and power lines, and that's where it becomes very problematic when you're tracking storms like this. I'm going to go back to the home view just to see if we see any additional winds. Tough to see when you're on a view like that. So much covers it up. So let me zoom back in, and I'll just take you up the river or just south of the river. Let's start with our far western communities, and we're just going to zoom into these severe thunderstorm warnings. We're looking for those pockets of heavy wind that we can see by the radar based on the velocity. As we roll through, you'll notice that forward push coming across parts of northern Hardin County. Now south of Radcliffe, we see a push of wind. That will be approaching the E-Town area. The strongest winds that we have just south of that tornado warning and moving right along Interstate 65. Approaching Boston, we can see that little push making its way into far western Nelson County. We have additional wind. Louisville, we're in the clear. Move south. We go into far northern Bullitt County, near Mount Washington, almost in the clear. We're over into parts of Spencer County. There's Waterford, Taylorsville, Little Mount, Taylorsville Lake. Push of wind and rain, but nothing too outrageous there. And then we go over into Shelby County, moving out of your area, moving to the south. Franklin County, a little push of wind just across southern Franklin County. So those are the areas of strongest wind. By far, when you check the radar, it's clear where we have the strongest area of wind. It's displaced just slightly from that tornado warning, but well within the severe thunderstorm warning, and that's the reason why. As that moves off to the east and southeast at about 40 to 45 miles an hour, that will impact parts of Bullitt County, Hardin County, and Nelson County with some very strong winds. Ryan Hoke.
I just want to give you a real quick update on flooding in Louisville. We've had well over an inch of rain in much of Louisville here today. You see 1.85, a little bit closer to U of L. That's the area that's been having big problems. 7th and Berry, a water rescue is in progress right now. You see, of course, these flooding reports coming in from Emping. The yellow ones, a little bit more than just some creek flooding. That's where you've got the street flooding. That's where you've got cars stranded. We've had one report of that in Middletown and, of course, inside the Watterson as well. Please do not drive through floodwaters here in Louisville. The rain is over, but the flooding threat continues for a little bit longer, Kevin.
All right. Again, we've had a tremendous amount of water. Some places to the south still seeing it. You have to realize we are not in a drought anymore, so what's coming down is rising in some cases, so flooding will continue to be a problem in these areas that are seeing especially repetitive rain. This is the velocity, so I'm keeping an eye and focused on the wind. So is Brian, so I know that we're watching right along I-65 from Lebanon Junction down toward E-Town, Brian, as being the core of this wind as it moves through. Could be strong enough to even topple some tractor trailers in some instances, with 60+ mile-per-hour winds not out of the question.
Yeah, that's what I was trying to do, was pull up some of the camera feeds in that area. Let me try to get up 65 itself and see if maybe we can get a camera feed that'll come into play. Once you get into that area, traveling there from, you know how rocky it is, then you go up the big hill eventually up toward E-Town. So it's before you get to that. It's in the area we're still on the flatter land there as you head into Lebanon Junction. I'm about to cross into Hardin County. So give me just a moment here. I'll pull up some of these. We have a few options that'll get you for those traveling south or north. Anyway, if you have anybody that you know of that is going to be traveling at all in this area, by the way, of Kentucky, just tell them to hold tight, let this kind of breeze on by. You don't want to be on the interstate, and certainly I know some truckers are going to be out there driving around in this kind of a mess, but this is where it gets really dangerous, is when you pass one of these semis with such very heavy rainfall that we've had in the area. It'll take me a second. I'll work on it. Once I get it up here, Kevin, I'll pull it back up for you and show you the image there.
Well, appreciate that. Yeah. Let's talk about what's going to happen moving forward. We still have the tornado warning. For all intents and purposes, will be expiring shortly. Coming up at 4:30, boom, it's there and it's gone. So tornado warnings have expired across the area. That was the final one that we have on the map. Now, the wind...
Tornado warning for Bullitt and Nelson. Yeah, and so our systems did lock up here, just FYI, Kevin.
That's going to... Okay. We keep having some technical problems. We apologize for that, but luckily we have redundancy, so we have a number of computers that we can go to. You can see what we were watching. That's that same area, just shifted a little bit farther to the south. This is a tornado warning now until 5 o'clock. This includes southern parts of Bullitt County and Nelson County. This is radar indicated. You may have, if you've been watching, heard us talking about the other one over Fort Knox was observed, so it's a little different. These storms, what they're doing, and let me go back to our home view, and I'll point out as we take a grander scope, we have a whole line of severe thunderstorms. These are producing winds, pockets of wind, 60, 70 miles per hour. We have sporadic trees down, power lines down, not for everybody along that line, but in places. And then we get these embedded areas of rotation. And with that, we're triggering these tornado warnings. Certainly, they could touch down at any point. And regardless if you have the tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning, we have both that are causing some damage. We were tracking, and I'm going to go back to the velocity here for us so we can see that rotation. It's a very tight couplet right there over 65, and that's the point we were looking at to say, hey, wouldn't be surprised if tractor trailers could get blown over by that wind. That was the pocket of wind. This is still some pretty intense wind, even going south down toward Colesburg, moving not far from E-Town. So in between Shepherdsville and E-Town, right around the Lebanon Junction exit on 65, pretty tight pocket of wind moving through. This will continue making its way across southern Bullitt County, likely seeing a strong push of wind near Boston, but also seeing that rotation. And you can sort of see it curled in there, where we would have that rotation that would be expected to move across central Nelson County. If it holds together, Bardstown would be in line to see some of that strong wind and possible rotation as well. So that's the area now of most concern, even though any place along that Boeing segment of wind would potentially produce some very strong wind with that. In Louisville, our winds have calmed all the way down. The threat of severe weather is over here in Louisville. To our south, that is not the case, though it will not last long. Let's get some street level mapping and go over to Brian.
Yeah, this is where the apex would be if there's any type of secondary rotation that is formed ahead of that notch that Kevin was pointing out to you. So this is the northern side you get of Lebanon Junction, taking up old Preston Highway area as you travel up 61. Also along, looks like Calling Hill Road, and then across over there is going to be, looks like Macy Road, heading off to the east. That will connect you all the way to I-65. Running parallel to it, though, would be Pine Tavern Road as well to the north and northeast of the circulation. Now, this is going to track just south of the Scuffletown area as it moves its journey there to the east and slightly south of east. So that's the general marker that we're looking at as it evolves. So right in through here as we're watching, hard to pick out a definitive signal. That's a good thing. If it's hard to pick out, that tells you that it's likely not anything strong or overly too concerning, but either way, don't let your guard down. I know the sirens are going off in Nelson County and Bardstown because you're on the very eastern edge of that circulation, but we've got some time here to track it. We'll see if it holds together as it heads off to the east. I've been watching even the strong wind on the southern side of this, while the northern part is circulating. That we need to watch around Scuffletown itself, around the southern side there, Bullitt County. There is that outward flow there, straight line wind blowing out in advance of it. And I ran and take a look at some of the semis there. This is not far from that location there along 65. Now they're coming out of the storm and going into a kind of idea. It's in the distance there. I don't have one right in the middle of that, but so far everyone seems to be moving, but you can tell that the ponding of water is a big issue. A lot of spray being kicked up as well, so just a mess, and we're going to keep our eyes out for other camera feeds, Kevin, as that storm makes its journey east. Yeah, and a lot of flashing lights, flashers on there, so take it easy, and in fact, you may let these storms pass before you head out if you're south of Louisville, where these storms are rolling through. This is the lone tornado warning that we have. This does include southern parts of Bullitt County and moves over into central Nelson County. Includes areas north of Boston, but along 62 as you work your way into Bardstown. The greatest part of rotation, again, is just radar indicated. Still now moving east of I-65. That's going to take it over toward Lebanon Junction area. So we're well south of Shepherdsville. We're not far from Lebanon Junction as we zoom into that. Let me zoom back in, and I'll point out just a few features on the velocity before we go back to the reflectivity. Again, this would be the core of the rotation that we're watching. Here's Lebanon Junction. Everybody knows the exit there. So we're not too far from Shepherdsville, just north of Lebanon Junction. This is making its way to the east. This, again, is radar indicated, so it's not on the ground as we know it, at least not yet. But anytime we see rotation show up in the environment that we have, and knowing that we had the tornado warning for northern Hardin County that was observed, it bears watching. We certainly know we're dealing with a powerful wind field. We can see that based on the radar as well. And with that, we have noted that these winds can come down or translate to the surface even within a thunderstorm. What happens is when you have a strong wind field going above you, the heavy weight of the rain pushes that wind down to the surface and it goes out. And that's where we can get straight line winds. It's where we can get even some, if we have rotation, tornadoes that develop. You're looking at some of the images behind me, and that's some trees that have been down within driving distance from Louisville, so likely over into parts of Oldham County or southern Indiana. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt there. Such a good description of what's going on. We do have what I think is taking place. The circulation we had at Fort Knox and the one that developed there located north of Lebanon Junction, they seem to be doing a do-si-do, a little bit of a loop-de-loop around each other. But what is happening with that taking place, notice the next little circulation that is popping up, or maybe a lead circulation near Boston, Kentucky. That we see common. Now, that's outside of the warning itself, but it's interesting to watch how this is evolving, where it's becoming like a little mini, what we call MCS, or a little blob of thunderstorms. We've heard of this a lot on the blogs, a lot, how these complex of storms are like their own little machine. We tend to get sometimes weak rotation on the leading edge of the straight line wind, which will be just south of where we have the original circulation. So while we're continuing to monitor that for the tornado warnings that continue, especially for rolling right into areas of Nelson County from the one that's located just around the Lebanon Junction area, I'm also keeping an eye on areas right around the leading edge of the Boeing segment around Boston, Kentucky. Sometimes you can develop some at least weak rotation there. Just a lot of many things, Kevin. There's nothing major that I see within this setup. They're all little things that have to be just monitored, and we got to do it scan by scan.
Yeah, it's just micro rotations that are showing up as these storms collide moving to our south. But the wind field today is super powerful for this time of year.
Yeah.
Something we typically see, what, in like early June?
This is way off the mark.
Yeah.
Usually it's just calm outside and you're hot and sweaty and no air at all. But the air is moving quite well today.
Yeah, it's the severe weather season that would not end. We have seen it, and at least it's not overnight this time. We continue to watch the radar. We have this push of wind coming through western parts of Nelson County. It's passing the Boston community now. This will move toward Bardstown and Balltown. This is going to be some strong wind, estimating that 30 to 50 miles an hour. The severe thunderstorm warning is in place. The new tornado warning is, or the latest tornado warning, getting revised. Again, radar indicated this will continue until 5 o'clock. This is capable of producing the tornadoes, and it's 7 miles to the west.
Tornado warning coming up for Breckenridge.
So a new one coming out for Breckenridge County. Again, you can see we're centered on Hardin County. Let's go back to our home view, and we'll see if we can't pick out, and you'll notice where that one's coming through. That one has a much more defined signature than the one moving across parts of Nelson County has. Let me get this out of the text box so you can see what we're looking at. We'll pan this out. First of all, you'll notice that this includes Breckenridge, Grayson, and Hardin counties. So this would be Clarkson, Litchfield, Short Creek. Once again, we've talked about this area being over near the Rough River Lake area. Also includes Litchfield. Let me put the velocity on that. You can really see the couplet that is developed.
A new tornado warning is going to be drawn up for the southern circulation displacement that we talked about there out of Nelson County. So we may see another one here pop in for Nelson.
Okay,
for that
so
reason.
Again, where we had that Boeing segment coming out.
Oh, wow, the velocity is really ramped up there for the straight line winds, by the way, surging out of that.
So this is going to be the Boston storm that you're looking at moving over to
correct.
The Bardstown
just east of E-Town, moving into the Boston communities in Nelson County. I don't know if they've issued the warning yet, but it's really ramped up.
Two storms we're watching. Brian has his eyes on the one in Nelson County. I'm watching the one moving across parts of Breckenridge County and down into Grayson County. This is right over the Rough River Lake area. This is Axtell. There's Short Creek. This is the rotation with this storm. This warning is in place, and that's the latest tornado warning that we've had issued. When we check the radar completely, meaning we go back to our home view, you're going to notice two tornado warnings on the map, with likely another one that will get drawn across parts of maybe Hardin and Nelson counties. Those would be the areas of most concern. So let's take a closer view. I'm going to keep the velocity on as we zoom into both of these areas. And we'll zoom in, keeping the tornado warning that we have, noting that we could wind up with the new tornado warning here. Pretty powerful push of wind passing by the Boston area. This would be the next couplet that we watch. That's going to move just south, and there it is. That's the latest tornado warning. If you're listening from Culvertown to Balltown, you are in the path of this storm, working your way north of New Haven and just south of Bardstown. You should be in your tornado safe place. This is the one that Brian was saying was tightening quickly. This one has tremendous wind potential with that. This will also linger into parts of Marion County. So this storm, including parts of Nelson, Marion, and Washington, until 5:30 as this storm moves across Balltown, Culvertown, as you work your way toward New Haven. So this would be an area of greatest concern. Why? Let's put the wind field on it, and you'll see what we're talking about. When we look at the velocity on this storm, you can see that strong push of wind right along the Bluegrass Parkway as you work your way from E-Town right into Bardstown. So if you're near Bluegrass Parkway, this area, moving eventually closer to Balltown and Culvertown, would be the zone of concern to see some of those stronger winds as it moves through. So you've got Balltown here, Culvertown just to the south. That is going to be an area. St. Thomas, that zone right along the Bluegrass Parkway and points toward Balltown would be the high impact zone for that storm. Again, radar indicated. So to our home view, 3 tornado warnings will show up. One is weakening just a bit as that push of wind moves through Boston and approaches Bardstown. The one strengthening, again, we were explaining why the southern part strengthens, because it has the energy to feed off of. That one's going to move across far eastern parts of Hardin County and move into central Nelson. from Culvertown to Balltown to St. Thomas, right into the southern part of Bardstown, and then over into the extreme northern part of Marion County. And then we have the tornado warning that was issued that is impacting parts of the Rough River Lake area, southern parts of Breckenridge, down into central Grayson County. I'll zoom into that one, and then we'll go over to Brian here in a second to talk about the Nelson County storm. This severe thunderstorm also has the capability to not only rotate, but it is rotating. It's radar indicated, so we have no idea if there's a tornado on the ground or not, but we can see that rotation on the radar right over the Falls of Rough, Cannons Point. This area moving towards Short Creek will continue pushing down toward Millwood and eventually Litchfield. So if you're in extreme southern Breckenridge County or in parts of Grayson County, you should be in your tornado safe place. Let's go to the other tornado warning in Nelson County.
All right, thanks, Kevin. And this is the one thing I want you to look at is the size of this tornado warning is rather long here on its duration. The polygon's been drawn. They're fairly confident that this is going to be a rotation that will last a while. And the reason for that is just the structure of the storm system altogether. Again, it's its own little machine that has started to develop. It started actually in Louisville, dropped down to Fort Knox, has curled around into the Boston area, and now it's going to race into areas on the southern side of Bardstown, head all the way into eventually Springfield. Hopefully it'll weaken on that journey, but that is going to be the entire journey. This little surge of high wind, which radar estimates are coming in at about 70 to 80 miles per hour just off the ground. Nothing like that has been measured at the ground level. We're waiting to see some of our gauges that cross into that area. I haven't seen anything yet from just scanning over. We have a few Mesonet sites there, and so far none of them have reached to that level, but it will cross a few of them. So we'll see what happens here when it does indeed do that. Otherwise, it's all about this point, just being in your safe spot. If you are even in around Bardstown, especially in the southern side of Bardstown, heading to Springfield, Balltown, make sure to get into the lowest level of your home. That is key. Lowest level, step number one. Next thing you need to worry about, get away from the exterior wall of your home, get away from windows, get into a closet or a bathroom, especially. Those tend to not have any windows in them in most cases. So again, get lowest level first, interior room second. Grab some shoes with you in case you were to get any kind of broken glass. Let's hope that's not the case as the storms are rolling through. But keep those procedures in mind. And take the phone with you. We're streaming right now on the Wave Weather app, so you guys are able to still listen to our voices, and we'll kind of guide you through when the all clear is. Speaking of all clear, Louisville is now in the all clear from severe. Same story for Indiana. So, Kevin, now this is roughly a southern metro into a parkways zone here, main focus that we got here across all 34 counties.
Yeah, who's not in the all clear would be the places over near Rough River Lake, down through Short Creek, moving toward the Western Kentucky Parkway, including Litchfield, and areas over toward Balltown, Culvertown, areas just south of Bardstown and north of New Haven in Nelson County. So those are the two tornado warnings that we have and are tracking at this point. It's 4:45, so we have only two tornado warnings that we have on the map at this point. Both of those showing rotation showing up on the velocity that we're watching. I can also show you the heavy rain that's falling. We've had a number of flood reports come across, and with that, we have the rain that's moving through. It's a narrow line. This isn't going to last long, but as we pointed out, 4:45, all of this will be through our viewing area by 6, 7 o'clock tonight. With that, we still have the tornado warnings that we're most concerned with. All of them radar indicated at this point, but worthy of our attention because of the very strong winds that we have in the atmosphere. And it's rare for this time of year to see wind fields like this. We're tapping into those, and we have a front that's moving through that's going to be sort of a sizable cold front for us for this time of year, too. We typically think of near 90-degree heat persisting, but this is going to take us down, in some cases, upper 70s, low 80s for the next 3 days. So we're winding up bringing in the cooler air, and this is the price we're paying for that. When you look at the latest on the scan, again, we can see the inflow going into the storm. But now let's look at the rotation, and we do that by looking at the velocity. That velocity should show that rotation very much near the Balltown area, as it does, down toward Culvertown. This is a pocket of very strong winds moving in. And I'll tell you what, let's go over to Ryan Hoke. And Ryan, while you're doing that, I'm going to make a quick text to my niece who lives right there.
Yeah, good time to do that, Kevin. We do have the Bardstown SkyTrack camera up looking south. We are looking into the mouth of this thing if we can. The problem is that Bardstown is in the downdraft of this storm here. New severe thunderstorm warning, by the way, popping up. Let me see if I can address that from right here. There you go. That new warning for Lebanon. That's Hodgenville. That's Campbellsville. This is a considerable tag on this severe thunderstorm warning. This goes until 5:30 Eastern. 30,000 folks involved. 70-mile-per-hour winds on this thing. Magnolia, Summersville. Please stay in your severe storm safe place in the middle of your house, away from doors and windows here. Almost treat this as if it's a tornado warning with 70-mile-per-hour winds moving through. Again, here's the Bardstown tornado warning. Just north of that, it's really the south side of Bardstown, near Balltown. That's where we see that circulation now moving through. We're back to the Bardstown SkyTrack camera. We're looking right where that circulation would be, pretty much due south of Bardstown, and we can't see it very well just because there's so much rain that's obscuring Bardstown's view of this thing. We're kind of on the wrong side of this. If we were south looking north, it'd certainly be a lot easier to see. This is 9th and Oak Street here in Louisville, by the way. You can see the deep water there. One of those vehicles potentially that just got out of there trying to get, of course, their belongings that were wet out of the vehicle. Downtown Hill Street from Amethyst on our Wave Weather Facebook page. Look at this. This vehicle is almost totally submerged in water on Hill Street. This is why there are water rescues in Louisville today. Do not play with this stuff. It means business. This is going to be Spencer County, where we have the highest percentage of course, power outages at this time. And that you see 10.8%, 817 customers without power here in Louisville right now. 3,100 customers without power. That's about 1% of Jefferson County. And finally, let's head on down to Hardin County, 1.2% without power, about 416 customers out. We've also been in communication with emergency management down in parts of Meade, Hardin, and of course, Bullitt counties. They say near West Point, a few trees down, but we're really not seeing reports of any major tornado damage there at this time. So hopefully, fingers crossed, the debris signature we saw near West Point on the north side of Fort Knox earlier, let's hope that was just some trees in a rural area. That would be fantastic. That may have been indeed what happens, guys, but we're going to continue to monitor this as we go through time.
All right, Ryan, thank you. A number of reports still coming in with power outages and downpours. The latest severe thunderstorm warning just south of that tornado warning that we're tracking in Nelson County. This includes Greene, LaRue, Marion, and Taylor counties, coming with the considerable tag of wind speeds estimated possibly as high as 70 miles an hour as this moves through. So that's one area of concern. The two tornado warnings we watch, obviously, are something that has our attention in addition to that entire line, which can produce some very strong winds. Let's take it step by step. We'll start with the tornado warnings. We still see that rotation, some very strong rotation showing up, very strong winds showing up not far from Hanging Rock. We go back to the velocity view on this. Let me point that out, and then I'm going to zoom back in, and then we'll just roll up this line of storms. So we zoom back into this. I'll zoom in tight so we can get some of the communities. This warning goes all the way down to Litchfield, but you can see near Fisher where we have some of the stronger winds. This is right on the county line. This is not far from Short Creek. Follow my hand. We're going to take that right into the Litchfield area as we roll through the next, say, 15 to 30 minutes. So these storms are moving at about 40 miles an hour. That's one tornado warning that we have that we continue to track through Cannons Point, Short Creek, Fisher, down toward Litchfield, the Western Kentucky Parkway. All right, let's roll our way back up. As we work our way to the east, you're going to have the opportunity to see some other areas of concern on the radar view. With that, we cross over. This is the Hardin County line. There's Pierce Mill moving over toward Howell Valley. We get into another severe thunderstorm warning just south of E-Town. Now in the clear, some strong winds approaching the Hodgenville area. This would be a push of strong winds into northern LaRue County. Roanoke, the wind is easing now for you, but you have some strong, some heavy wind, or excuse me, some heavy rain. The strongest pocket of wind is now moving through near the Culvertown area. That's south of Balltown, just north of New Haven. This is the strongest wind we have on radar. This is the greatest potential for rotation. You see the blinking polygon indicating that the tornado warning continues for parts of central Nelson County moving over into Washington County. That's going to take you along 150 from Booker down to Bear Wallow. This is north of Loretto, but it does include the extreme northwestern part of Marion County within that warning. Again, pocket of heavy wind, very strong winds moving through parts of southern Nelson County just north of New Haven. Now, we also have additional thunderstorm warnings that are being issued farther to the east. Here's here's Lexington. This warning is for Clark, Jessamine, Mercer. It triggered our area because it does include a very narrow part of northeastern Washington County. So they're getting hit now with that storm, but colliding with that will be the storm moving out of central Nelson County. So we'll see how that collision works with these storms. These storms have, obviously when they collide, they do different things. They're not going to maintain their same structure as they start to merge together. So that'll be an interest point to watch. What happens when we get these storms that collide, it oftentimes sparks another rotation. So we'll have to watch that as this moves across Nelson County into Washington County. So that's the latest warning. Back to the New Haven wind that we're watching. That continues to broaden out just a bit, again being influenced by the storms moving in from the north, and that is part of the equation that we continue to watch. Where these storms develop and how long they will last depends on the atmosphere around them, and this is the current warning that we have. It's the tornado warning. We have two. This is one moving across Nelson, now moving into extreme northern Marion County, north of Loretto, and then eventually into parts of Washington County. That would include Bear Wallow and may include Springfield, likely just north of that. That's one tornado warning. The other one is back to our west over across parts of Grayson County, and that too is broadening out just a bit, and we can see that based on the velocity. Let's go over to Brian Good.
All right, Kevin, what I'm going to do is show you those wind fields again on radar based here. And there's a couple of things I want to point out. We're looking right into Marion County and into Nelson County, as well as the very eastern side there of LaRue County. And you can see that strong push of wind. Now, I'm going to draw a line here. Bear with me. I'm going to put the line roughly right here near the corner there, northwest corner of Marion County, all the way through Newmarket, heading to the south and east. I'm going to box in this section of the line, and this will include Raywick. This area of, again, the far eastern side of LaRue, a good chunk of the western side of Marion, and northern part there, even all the way into Taylor County, eventually this will run into. That section has the greatest potential of your straight line 70-mile-per-hour plus winds that can certainly develop in this kind of a scenario as it dives quickly. The radar's got to catch up because more than likely the storm is going to outrun each radar scan update we get. So we'll try to keep updated with it as it makes that journey south and east. Now I'm going to draw a secondary box. This one's going to be a little skinnier. This is going to cover areas just north, well, just through there, to include right around Newmarket itself, heading just south and west of Lebanon, Kentucky. This is the zone. If there's going to be any type of tornado potential, it will likely develop in that corridor. And a very narrow area, very close to 68 in the southwest side of Lebanon, I think would be included in that. So a tornado zone on the northern side of this dive these storms are having, and then a very broad area that has been drawn up for straight line 70+ mile-per-hour winds as this dives south and east. The humidity is very high here, guys, and the amount of heating is pushing 90 in several spots in the afternoon. So there is plenty of fuel for these to feed on, Kevin, and we're not dealing with what we normally use as our saving grace here, the darkness of night, to weaken as they dive to southern Kentucky. So our friends in this area, and as you know, your family in this area, are used to hearing us say that. In today's case, they can actually maintain their intensity all the way down to Tennessee.
Yeah, there's no weakening. The good news is they are moving fairly fast, but as we pointed out, while they may trek to the east, they are seeing that jog to the south, and that's why as the whole line moves to the south, we continue to see that stair step of the warnings move with it. Well, in parts of Grayson County, you can see Breckenridge has been released of the tornado warning there, but it continues for Grayson, so let's zoom back in. I'll take you on a little tour of the tornado warnings that we have. We zoom in, again broadening out just a bit, but still seeing enough rotation for the tornado warning to continue. This tornado warning again will maintain itself for a while longer as we approach the Litchfield area. Enough rotation and enough forward wind speed where we could see 60, 70 mile-per-hour winds. That's moving past the Rough River Lake area toward Millwood, Litchfield, and the Western Kentucky Parkway. That's one tornado warning. We have the other that was issued issued for parts of central Nelson County. This one continues to move out of Nelson County and over into northern Marion County and Washington County. Let's zoom into that. As we go back to the zoom feature, we'll notice parts of Nelson County seeing that rotation now passing by 31E, so it's moving past Balltown and Culvertown. That strong push of wind is going to impact Loretto. You're under the severe thunderstorm warning. The greatest rotation is just north of you, maybe toward Holy Cross, pushing into extreme western Washington County. And that would be near 150 from Booker to Springfield. But as mentioned, wouldn't be surprised that if a new tornado warning gets drawn up, that it shifts just a little bit farther to the south, which may include Loretto or even Lebanon. As we bring this area of rotation farther to the east, it will undoubtedly move farther to the south as well. So that's one area we're watching. Some very strong wind there, and that's been the focal point on the radar for the last hour plus. And again, the strongest winds that we've seen on the radar so far today have been coming out of this storm. Now, they're a little weaker than they were just earlier when we saw them moving across parts of western Nelson County, but nonetheless, they still have a punch to them as they make their way off to the east. I'm just going to ask our control room. I know we have a number of crews out and about. If there's anything we need to go to, just let us know. We know that we have crews that we want to be able to show what's happened in the wake of these storms as well. That helps to really deliver the picture of how strong and intense they were. We know we appreciate many of your reports when it's safe to do so. We've got a lot of pictures that have been coming in through the Wave Weather app and to our Facebook page. So thank you very much for posting those. Ryan Hoke is standing by with an update on some of the damage.
Yeah, we do have some of the damage coming in from Facebook, as you mentioned. By the way, still looking south from Bardstown with our SkyTrack camera there. Still kind of hard to see, but we're looking right toward the Balltown area there. This is from Chris Beckley. This is via the Wave Weather app. This is Radcliffe, and you can see a large part of the facade of this business here that might say Liquors on it. I'm not quite sure. Has fallen on an ice machine right in front of the business here. So this is Radcliffe, Kentucky. Obviously some wind damage there, potentially at a spirit shop there right in Radcliffe. So we'll continue to monitor your social media and, of course, your Wave Weather app photo and video submissions there. You see all the power outage numbers across our counties right now. You can see the most affected areas are pretty much along and south of the Ohio River here. Spencer County, about 11% without power there. And, of course, the E-Town area as well. These numbers may continue to go up, guys, as we get a little closer to, of course, seeing those numbers coming in behind these storms. It takes a little bit.
All right, Ryan, thanks. The tornado warning is being expired for Nelson County, but that will likely continue as we move it across parts of Washington and Marion counties. At this point, that tornado warning and the one down toward the Litchfield area are the two that we have and have had for the last little bit. Additional severe thunderstorm warnings continue to come out. Let's zoom back into those. We still see some rotation now approaching Litchfield, moving closer to the Western Kentucky Parkway. We have had some reports of damage and power outages with these individual pockets, but additional pockets of wind have caused problems as well. You'll notice those streaming all the way back to the north. Now you can see that polygon sort of refreshing itself. That was the one that we had for parts of Nelson County. I'll zoom back into that. That has become a very limited area of concern as we approach that near the Springfield area. That warning technically still there. So the tornado warning continues for parts of Marion, a very minor part of Marion, moving over into Washington County. That storm will be in place for, let's see, that is moving east at 30 miles an hour and will stay in place until 5:30. So another 30 minutes still left on that tornado warning as we move it to the east, running at 30 miles an hour. Perhaps a bigger issue may be this push of wind that's going to approach the Lebanon area. That is a strong push of wind that's seen an uptick near the Loretto area at this point, moving toward Lebanon. So we have strong winds in western Marion County, Nelson County. The worst is over for you at this point. Back to our home view we go. Two areas of main concern for us. One, moving into western Marion County, where we not only have the very sliver of a tornado warning, but we also have that push of strong wind. That's one zone that we're watching. And the other one's where we have the rotation and the push of wind approaching the Litchfield area. So those are the two areas of strongest wind that we have on the radar. Pretty easy to see when you're looking at the velocity velocity on that as well. You can see the brighter colors and obviously the greens and reds indicating the rotation, and then that push of stronger wind moving across western Marion County that will likely clip southern parts of Washington County. So that's what we have going on at this point. Let's go over to Brian Good, keeping an eye on that wind moving into western Marion County.
Yeah, like you said, this is the only good news is that we want them to move fast enough to get in and get out of here, right? But we don't want them to move too fast to where they cause problems when it comes to wind damage. It's kind of like a Goldilocks in between, if we can find that here with this, as they are diving quickly. I mean, that orange shade is radar estimates, and again, this is off the ground, radar estimates of about 75 to now nearing 80 miles per hour as it moves into the western side there of Marion County. And that is, Kevin's right, it's going to head into between New Market and the Lebanon, Kentucky area. And it'll likely produce, it should be one heck of a shelf cloud. You guys could see from your homes. I'm not telling you to get outside, but if you have your doorbell cameras, you probably see them right now. But it should be a very giant shelf cloud. It looks like something from Independence Day that's likely overtaking Marion County, because this is such a large storm with very strong wind fields with it moving in. And still at times, you got to watch that northern side of that, kind of like you move your hand through water. The water goes around your hand on either side. That's what's happening to the wind with the surge. The wind is surging, but on the either side, it's going around it. When that takes place, it does tend to curl a bit. On either end, you can get that rotation. It's more common on the left side or northern side of the system, so that's the reason why the tornado warnings were issued for the areas that have been trying to circulate in wake of this strong push of wind. Once this continues to outrun that potential and get a little further out, we will start to see that tornado threat diminish. But at the moment, they're still side by side with each other, and we still need to monitor that as it dives quickly. So again, Lebanon, New Market, Kevin, those are the two spots that are prone to some wind damage here in the next, I would say, 15 to 30 minutes if this holds course.
Yeah, the areas we're watching again, not only across western Marion County, but back out into Grayson County. Those are the two strongest pockets of wind we have. Both of those areas tagged with tornado warnings. This one goes until, the one that we're looking at here goes until 5:30. That brings it across Marion and Washington counties. But the strongest push of winds actually just south of that tornado warning. Regardless, we're tracking that. Lots of lightning with these storms. You're looking at the reflectivity, but let me show you what the lightning bolts look like with that. South of Louisville, you're in the clear. We're pretty much focused now along the parkways. These will continue moving south. So for the viewing area, we probably got another 2 hours of storms, and then it's out of here. With that said, we've left in its wake enough to see flooding and some downed trees and power lines. I'm going to go back to our velocity.
I just got 53 miles per hour into Marion County Mesonet site.
So let's take a closer view of that. We had mentioned that, and we've got a new warning coming out here, so let me go to that first. This is going to be for Grayson, Hardin, Hart, and LaRue. So this will take place. So they were asking, will the tornado warning for Grayson County be extended? The Weather Service has elected to go with a severe thunderstorm warning on that. Again, radar indicated no tornado tag on that, so some good news. And as Brian pointed out, as we go through time, the farther west you go, the less rotation there will be. Notice the green popping in where we have flooding concerns, and that's a flash flood warning coming in on the backside of the system as the rain comes to an end. With that said, we're going to contend with some strong winds moving through. So let me just put the wind on that while we have that centered up. And you can see that push of wind approaching Litchfield, US 62, the Western Kentucky Parkway. That is the strong push of wind with this warning that we have moving across Grayson County. It's going to move all the way through as well. So it'll cross over the Western Kentucky Parkway shortly. That moves right over the Litchfield area. So expect some strong winds to move through in that vicinity. We also have that pocket of wind that we mentioned, and Brian just pointed out. What was the speed? 52?
53 miles per hour measured.
So that was 53 mile per hour winds measured over at the Mesonet site in western Marion County, probably near the Loretto area. And you'll see Loretto pops up. This is the pocket of wind, and this is what we were watching. We said it was displaced to the south from the warning. This is going to move across parts of Washington County, Bear Wallow, and Springfield. Yes, you're hearing the tornado warning sirens going off, and there is some rotation there, but the greatest wind is to your south. So there's going to be more damage in Loretto and St. Mary and Lebanon likely than there will be in Bear Wallow if any of that can reach the ground. What will bring that wind to the ground? Heavy rain can do it. So let's keep an eye here. I'm going to come back and put my hand there, but I also want to put on the sort of reflectivity. Remember this area? So what we were looking for is, while that is where we have the strongest winds showing up on radar, it is not where we have the heaviest rain. That's good news, because it's the rain that can bring that heavy wind down to the surface. So there is a chance that that wind may not be reaching the surface, especially the further away we get from the radar view, because the beam goes up. Why? Because the Earth is curved, believe it or not. We wind up noting the velocity showing some of that strong wind still now moving through the St. Mary area.
And it's worth mentioning, Kevin, where that 53 miles per hour was in Laredo, but that's not the core where the strongest wind passed through when I was monitoring that. So
that could even be
higher. Yeah, exactly, in that area. So.
Where was the Mesonet located?
In Laredo itself.
Yeah, so Loretto. Yeah, I thought so. So not far from Loretto. So the strongest wind displaced to the south. That would mean if Loretto had 53-mile-an-hour winds, this would easily probably be 60-plus mile-per-hour winds moving through the St. Mary area. That's going to approach Lebanon. So Lebanon will be in on the strong winds out of this storm as well. So that's a pocket of wind that we're watching too. So several things going on the radar. Additional storms with pockets of heavy wind just outside of our viewing area. Those moving out of Washington County over toward Anderson County, Boyle County, seeing some wind. But our concern maintains its strength across western Marion and then central parts of Grayson. Those are the two pockets of wind. Technically, tornado warning in place for Washington and Marion until 5:30. The one for Grayson has been allowed to expire. So the warnings that we have, for the most part, severe thunderstorm, the probability of seeing tornadoes lower and lower, but straight line winds will still be a problem. And we've seen a number of those producing damage already in the form of downed trees and power lines. And we have a number of folks reporting that in pockets all the way from southern Indiana down into central Kentucky. Once you're on the backside of this front, you're going to wind up, or at least the initial line of storms, you're going to wind up seeing plenty of dry time. So the rain has ended in Louisville, but the flash flooding still persists in some areas until that water can recede. Same story for this flash flood warning, southern parts of Harrison County, Meade County, over into northern Perry. So there will be some areas of flooding, typically the flood-prone areas. The good news is these storms are moving fairly fast, and they'll continue tracking through the area and eventually be out of here with little impact on flooding, more of an impact in the pockets that receive the heavy wind that's been moving through. When we go back to our velocity view, we can point out the wind. It's just the same repetitive pattern for us, where we have to just keep checking each scan of the radar to see what we're dealing with. Do we have rotation? Do we have straight line winds? Are we dealing with any type of debris that may be lofted into the sky if there is rotation? So at this point, we have very little rotation. It's very broad rotation. So what we would say is that we have a strong push of wind moving right across the western Kentucky Parkway, very heavy rain falling, flash flooding in flood-prone areas. This is going to make its way down toward Fragrant and Annetta. So that's the storm right over Litchfield. Strongest push of wind now moving across the western Kentucky Parkway, very close to the Litchfield vicinity. As we work our way back up the western Kentucky Parkway, we come back into Hardin County. You get to Glendale. You get into E-Town. The bulk of the rain is gradually ending and the wind is subsiding. Our SkyTrack cameras confirm that as well. We push back Hodgenville, LaRue County, seeing some wind. Strongest pocket of wind near you would be near Athertonville, not far from New Haven, down towards southern Nelson County. This is going to be moving across areas toward Howardstown, just south of New Haven, where I grew up, moving toward Glennings, over toward Raywick and Loretto. Clearly, this is the largest pocket of wind we have, moving into western and eventually central Marion County. We said this was going to approach the Lebanon area. That certainly will. That's going to be a push of wind that comes in. Radar indicated, so it's important to know if you are in Lebanon and you're like, wait a minute, where's the wind? I don't really see it. Well, just know if it's not reaching the ground, which is possible, there are only a couple of things that can bring it to the ground. One of those would be the heavy rain. If this is the wind, you're still seeing heavy enough rain to bring that down to the ground anywhere from Newmarket to Lebanon. So that would be an area of concern. Is it a guarantee? No. In weather, it hardly ever is. But that's what we're seeing on the radar. Let's go over to Brian.
Okay, a couple things to pass along. One, we do have a damage update. This came in from the Bedford, Trimble County area. that zone there from earlier storms. Report of a structural damage to a barn with siding and roof that has been torn off. There are power poles that are leaning close to the ground. On reports of several trees that are down. We've seen the same reports in Degoshen we've been talking about before of trees that have been knocked down. So that area, again, in the 71 zone there and the corridor has been hit with quite a bit of wind and likely some wind damage. Likely not the last of the trees. Is this a live image? Right now, okay, from earlier, this wasn't too long ago, but in Goshen, again, highway, I believe, was 1139, I believe is the roadway. That was one of the roads that had featured. A lot of the tree limbs are down. It looks like a pine. Pines are notorious to fall during wind damage, so that isn't too surprising. They bend easily and break when it comes to high wind scenarios there. So we'll continue to monitor what's going on there into Trimble and to Oldham County, as well as what's happening in Marion. Again, Marion, you're still going through the thick of it right now. You can look at the wind fields. This is where you're looking at in a broad scope across our southern part of wave country. Notice the wind field in Litchfield. Yes, it gets our attention. It's a bright red, but there's still the same distance as Marion County is from the radar beam, but you're getting that orange shade, indicating the wind aloft here in Marion is stronger than what is even happening in Litchfield. And even in Litchfield, you're like, this is strong enough. We don't need any more. Well, Marion County, you guys are getting rocked right now. Whether or not it's making it down below the ground level, we don't know. As far as below these the tree line, getting below the clouds, that's what we're still waiting for. Having Mesonet sites that in Laredo have recorded wind gusts of 53 miles per hour. I've seen several 47, 48s coming in as I'm talking right now, just downstream of that. This is still producing some very strong wind that just passed over in Lebanon. We do have a sensor, by the way, in Lebanon itself that we will not get an update on just based on how it's designed, being owned by the airport. It does not update until the top of the hour. So hopefully at that point we may get a wind gust, something else measured out of Lebanon, but it's now passed south of Lebanon. It's up the core of downtown Lebanon. It's heading right into Phillipsburg and Bradfordsville, and then may eventually cross over, the way it's looking now, just outside of our area to get into the northeast corner there of Taylor County.
All right, Brian, thank you. We checked the radar view, and you can see a number of polygons lined up. New tornado warnings coming out just east of Lexington. For us, all severe thunderstorm warnings at this point. We're at 5:13 in the afternoon. Here's the plan. What we're going to do is get to our news coming up here in just a few minutes. Before we do that, I want to set the stage. I want to show you what Corey Trent's view looks like. He's on the Western Kentucky Parkway. He's down moving into the Bonneville area. So he's ahead of this storm, moving toward Munfordville right into Hart County. So I'm going to show you that. And then I'm going to go over to Ryan, who has some video to show of some of the damage that's been reported. We're about to bring that up. So that's what it looked like earlier, just a few minutes ago, when he was live. You could see what that storm looked like and it was approaching the area. With that, what we had noted was some strong winds. And you can see the grass blowing across parts of where he was. And now we're seeing what that looked like as he was driving into the core of the rain moving in. And again, that is very intense rain along the Western Kentucky Parkway moving into Hart County, the southern part of our viewing area. Back to the radar we go. I'll point out where we were just looking at, again, from Corey Trent, right in this zone here, moving from the Western Kentucky Parkway right down and then just a little bit to the south, not far from the Bonneville exit. So that's the zone that we're watching, where that heavy rain is falling. Severe thunderstorm warnings continue there. We continue to maintain those across Marion and Washington counties. I'm going to zoom back into that and show you the velocity, because that's where we have the powerful wind that we had noted moving toward the Lebanon area. Again, easing out just a bit. You can even see on the reflectivity, this is where we should have, because the Boeing segment often matches where we have some of the stronger wind pockets. So keep an eye here, and then I'm going to put the velocity on. And as we look at the velocity, that is the same zone that has the pocket of heavy wind. That is moving to the south and east. That's almost out of the viewing area within the next, say, 15 minutes. I'm going to zoom in to give you just a couple of locations that could be seeing some of that. It appears that it's eased just a bit. We had those brighter orange colors in there earlier, but now moving just south of Lebanon, near New Market, near Greenbrier. This will move near Bradfordsville as well as it moves out of Marion County. That's the latest latest on the core of the velocity that we have. One more round of what we're looking at, and then we'll get to the day's news, and we'll continue with severe weather coverage on the live stream. So let's go over to Ryan Hoke for an update on some of the damage that we've seen today.
Yeah, you see all these storm reports here. The newest damage, of course, from Trimble County that Brian Good was talking to you about earlier. A lot of flooding reports here with Louisville. Trees and power lines down all across the Louisville area and parts of southern Indiana. Best way for us to show you that is with video, and we're going to go to that now and show you a few clips of what we have seen here as we've gone throughout the afternoon. And that has been, as you see there, that is Louisville Fire and Rescue there on the scene. It looks like they've got a boat. So indeed, that was the viaduct, Hill Street in Louisville here. And you can see this is something you don't want to drive through. I know we talked to you about this ad nauseum. Maybe you ignore it. This is not the time to be doing that. So let's go to the next piece of video here and see what else we have. And of course, this was from South Louisville a little bit earlier. We appreciate our viewers for sending us, of course, the wind and the rain that she saw down there. Let's go to our next piece of video here. And that is indeed, looks like a pretty good little push of wind moving in there. Not quite sure where this one is. This may have been Austin, Indiana.
Goshen.
Goshen, there we go. And let's go to our next piece of video, see what else we've got there. There's some pretty good winds there. This one is from just west of Austin. This is what we were showing you earlier. You can hear the sound there from that security video. Holy cow. That one, of course, from Crystal. Crystal, thank you for sharing that with us here. Her pool furniture went every which way in the storm there. We'll go to our next piece of video here, and that, of course, looks like 9th and Oak Street flooding. Not a good place to be, unfortunately. A driver stranded there trying to get things out of their vehicle there. LMPD on the scene a little bit earlier. The viaducts are super dangerous in flooding here, and I think we may have one more piece of video here. This may be coming from the Goshen area in Oldham County. Indeed it is, and we showed this to you a little bit earlier there with the big branches down on the roadway. So Kevin, it's all about flooding. It's all about trees down. It's about folks trying to pick up the pieces here as we go throughout the afternoon. And thankfully, the weather gets a lot calmer from here forward after these storms. So picture perfect weather to be picking up that patio furniture, using those chainsaws and doing all of that safely.
Yeah, I can't wait to show the 10-day coming up in the news here. Yeah. Thanks, Ryan. Appreciate the reports on that. Ryan's going to now move to our 24/7 weather channel. If you're looking for nonstop weather coverage, you can find that on what we call Wave Weather Now. It's Louisville's first streaming weather channel. It's been around for a couple years now. You can find it on the Wave Weather app or the Wave News app, or if you have Roku, Fire Stick, Amazon, or Apple TV, it's all there for you. Just look for that. We're going to continue with our news coming up here in a second, but I want to give one more update, and we have additional severe thunderstorm warning coming out. This one's going to be for parts of Butler, Ohio, and Warren counties. So this is just slightly outside of the viewing area, closer to that Litchfield storm that we've been watching. That also comes with the tornado possible tag on it. The greatest pocket of wind that we have happens to be across Marion County, just south of Lebanon, moving toward Greenbrier. I'm going to go over to Brian Good for one last update from him before we get into our newscast here. Brian?
Yeah, that pocket of wind has really it's held on for quite some time, and really generated from the spin that was located around portions of Fort Knox earlier on, and has maintained itself all the way across southern Kentucky. Is now just south of Lebanon, holding on as you head. Here's some of the streets with some of the higher wind gusts may be found along 208 there, which is going to be near Calvary Road, heading toward Ed Lee Road and Honest Abe Lane. Pour a wave. All right, as you head down to the south, look at the 80s that are still primed here. So there's still enough fuel and warmth around, I would say, the parts anyway of Adair County and Taylor that could sustain some development of additional showers and storms there and gusty winds to maintain that. Otherwise, this pocket of wind is just going to have to run right out of the viewing area. I think it's going to hold on into the very end portion of it. It is worth mentioning, by the way, well, I'm not showing you rain at the moment. I'm showing you the wind fields. Let me show you what the rain looks like. There are some spotty showers redeveloping where areas have already recovered from the earlier storms or did not have as much action for a while there today. In fact, Seymour, you're at 90 right now, 88 in Bedford. I can't rule out additional smaller thunderstorms that could develop in southern Indiana here, but these are not expected to be severe. Just in which you think that round 3 is on the way or anything like that. That's not the case. It's just that there's still some fuel in areas that were untouched from earlier on. But Kevin, this is a line the models have actually done quite well with on the idea of this getting very organized once it emerged along the parkways and headed south. And that certainly looks to be the case with this one as well. And another extension to some of these warnings, just the cover that wind we just talked about, just going to scoot it down south. And I think they're going to do that all the way down to Tennessee with this one.
Yeah, let's take a look at the latest severe thunderstorm warning coming out. And it looks looks like we have this one out for Green, LaRue, Marion, Taylor. Comes with a considerable tag. That would be 70 miles an hour wind. That's the one we have been watching moving across the area. So that's one that will continue passing by. From my brother that's down in parts of Marion, Nelson County, he says trees are down on Highway 49 from Loretto to Bardstown there, crossing both lanes.
Okay,
so,
we have a tornado warning.
Tornado, yeah.
Just for a small part here, though, of Grayson, that southeast side, but it is going to influence some of our viewers into Hart County as well, Kevin.
Let's take a look at that. And let's go to, while I'm looking up that tornado warning here, we're going to take also a look at Corey Trent's view because he's very close to this area. This is for Grayson and Hart County. That is the latest tornado warning. As this buffer, as you can see, moving into that storm, we're pretty much along the Western Kentucky Parkway, I believe, close to that.
Yeah, it's radar indicated instead of confirmed.
So, again, it is indicated by radar. We'll come back and check on that. He's still a little bit displaced from the storm, but just know we've got a set of eyes on the sky there. Back to the radar view we go. And I'll point out that as we roll toward Hart County, you can see the county line there. There's Bonnieville. So coming down I-65 is likely where we're at with Corey, moving toward Bonnieville. That storm, again, has the potential. I'm going to move it out of the way so you can see the rotation. Moving over Annetta. This was the same storm passing through Litchfield. This storm had the ability to produce that tornado as it was moving across the Rough River Lake area, and now we see that rotation tightening up just a bit again. Note that it is the southernmost storm, so if it were to happen, that's a likely place for it to occur. It's feeding off of an untouched environment. It is the farthest to the west, and the farther west we go, eventually we run out of the wind field that's needed, so we're barely hanging on here. And again, that's why it's it's not touched down, but it's observed by radar. And radar indicated, I should say, and that is in place now with a tornado warning until 6 o'clock. So we'll continue with this as it moves through parts of Hart County. So we're back, as I thought we were going to get back to the day's news, we continue with nonstop tornado warning coverage here until the top of the hour. It's now 5:23. This tornado warning, again, has the ability, but has had no signs of actually touching down. Moving through the Litchfield area, we did see some strong winds. And in fact, we even have had a few trees down across parts of Grayson County. But for now, this storm is radar indicated. This is not the only storm we've had that we know of where a tornado was actually on the ground was northern Hardin County, not far from the Fort Knox area. So that's the only one that we know that's touched down. However, what we know is we have had a number of trees and power lines down, and regardless if that was caused by an actual tornado or straight line winds, it doesn't really matter. It's down trees and power lines, and that becomes the issue to deal with at hand. To our home view we go. The latest tornado warning coming out within that cluster of severe thunderstorm warnings. That's the area of rotation, but the strongest area of wind showing up. Now, again, it may not be actually touching down. The strongest area of wind continues to move now across parts of south central Marion County, moving toward the Bradfordsville area. That's going to clip northern Taylor County, north of Mansville, and that will make its way off to the south and east. We know near the Danville area, we've also got trees down in places, branches that have been broken, so we know we have some strong winds not too far away from this area near Danville. Bradfordville likely seeing some gusty winds. I did speak to my niece earlier who I was texting over near the Culvertown area. While they did have some very strong winds, wasn't enough to do any damage, so some good news. A brief period of wind and rain, and it was in and out, and that's what we're seeing along this line. These pockets do have the potential, though, and that's the reason we've been on nonstop since about 2:15 this afternoon. First on our stream, and then during the newscast at 3:02, we've been on with nonstop tornado coverage since about that time. That said, as we go back to the radar, I'll point out as we put it into motion how these storms are moving. The whole line is sinking to the south, and it's moving at a fairly decent pace, running at about 30 to 40 miles an hour as this settles off. Each individual cell moves along this line. What that tells us is that we'll be out of our viewing area probably within the next hour, I'd say, or hour and a half. By between 6 and 7 p.m., this should be clearing the southern part of the viewing area. We'll stay on with with nonstop coverage with the tornado warning until 6 o'clock. Hopefully after that, the bulk of the storms will have subsided and we'll be able to get to some of the day's news. Nonetheless, the bulk of the viewing area is clear. We do have a few showers starting to pop in the wake of that front, but these will not be severe. They'll put down just a little bit of rain, and eventually we're going to see some clearing skies and cooler, less humid air move in. Highs the next couple of days will bounce back below average. A pretty good feel for this time of year. Nonetheless, today we're paying the price with a strong front that's moving in with the line of storms. Comes with a pretty strong wind field for this time of year too. More likely what we'd see in late May or early June. But with that, we have seen enough instability with the heating of the day, the strong wind fields, enough shear in the atmosphere to provide rotation, and consequently you get this on the radar. I'm going to stop the radar. We'll look back at the velocity on that, and then we can sort of analyze what to expect as we move forward. This is the severe thunderstorm that was in place. Now with the tornado warning, you can see the couplet still tightening up a little bit more across southeastern parts of Grayson County. This is going to move closer to the Munfordville area as we move that into Hart County within probably the next scan of the radar. Brian, I see you're looking at the same storm.
Yeah, just kind of watching how it's doing this little bit of a curl up, if you will, if it makes that journey out of Litchfield. It's journeying into Hart County, and that will take it to a little bit more of an easterly turn briefly as it does so. So that will put it right into areas around, say, Doug Hill, heading towards Spike, Broad Ford area, Perryman, also included the community of Wax, Pine Springs subdivision may be involved in that, Roseburg, Dog Creek, and right around Wheeler's Mill. Those are some of the communities right now that I see that will be at least in the broad rotating area. And this is broad rotation, so there is, even just by radar right now, I don't see any sign of anything that's touching the ground. It's just that you may see video. Some folks may be watching and looking outside. We're not encouraging you to go outside. We want you to get in your safe spot, but somebody's going to run out there. But the base of the clouds, what's happening is the base of the cloud is lowering. So I'll just describe it to you so you don't have to go anywhere. The bottom of the cloud is dropping down a little bit lower. That can be a sign of a decent rotation aloft. It does this many times in strong storm scenarios. They don't always produce a funnel, and they rarely produce a tornado. You just have to be ready and watch it. And what the Weather Service has done with their different wave viewing warnings now is that anytime that the radar indicates that potential has started, phase one, if you will, then it gets their attention. They don't want to take any chances that it could drop down, so the tornado warning's out. And that's why some cases you hear about tornadoes afterwards, and sometimes you hear about a few limbs that have been knocked down, and that's the worst of it. It makes a difference, though, on being ahead of the game and being notified. And that's why we're here, just to keep an eye on it for you guys. As soon as we see a sign that this has a tendency to drop even lower than what the radar's indicated, then we'll pass it on. But until then, stay in your safe spot, especially in the northwest side there on Hart County.
Yeah, if you're near that area of rotation, that is the strongest that we have on the radar. You can see a number of sources that we have. Things have cleared out here in Louisville, where you see the storm tracker just below Brian's image there. We have Corey Trent, who's been tracking storms with us across central Kentucky. This is taking us down close to Bonnieville, not too far from the Western Kentucky Parkway at last check, trying to get another location update. But that's going to be close to the core of this storm. Here's the Western Kentucky Parkway, and as we work our way toward Hart County, that would take us toward the Munfordville area. Let me zoom back into that. Brian's been showing us the sort of edge of where we needed to be concerned. I'll do the same as we pretty much focus on this one storm. We have another 30 minutes on this. It's passing by Doug Hill. If we were to see the rotation, that's where it would be at Pastaneta, moving toward Ponderosa. We're now down toward the Nolin Lake area, now moving toward the far western parts of Hart County, and you can see that outline there. That would take it over toward Pine Springs and Big Windy. May live up to its name today. We're going to see that storm push in as you work your way along 88 and moving toward the Pine Springs area. So that is where we have the tornado warning in place, moving out of Grayson County, moving into western parts of Hart County, and that will continue its transition as we move it into central Hart County. But for now, we have some strong winds and that broad rotation moving from Snap, Doug Hill, Ponderosa, that general area. The strongest rotation earlier was very close to that Annetta area, and that would take it just south near Ponderosa toward Doug Hill, moving right into western parts of Hart County. That's the current radar view for the velocity. When we look at where we have the reflectivity and heavy rain falling, again, in that same general area, tough to pick out any tight rotation either on the velocity or the reflectivity. So that said, that is the greatest push of wind. And Brian, that's sort of been the story today, where it's tightening up at times but broadening out in others.
Yeah, exactly. And got to keep an eye on everything at one time, as many as you possibly can to keep an eye on, because they can develop these circulations and lose them in a matter of time. But we've had by far more straight line signatures today than we've had tornadic signatures, but still getting the same amount of wind damage you would expect on a busy day like this. We're still getting limbs down. Even in Lebanon, Kentucky, I just saw the latest imping there, 3-inch limbs that have been knocked down there. And I got a feeling we're going to hear a lot of these reports that are going to be a bit delayed. All right. An example of that, some of the damage reports we're still getting in to our social media side as well. Ryan Hogue is standing by with an update there on that. Hey,
yeah,
Ryan.
we'll do this quickly so we can get back to that circulation here. Big old tree down E-Town Memorial Gardens from Donna there. You can see the roots and everything. It's because the ground is so wet right now, if you can believe that. Same story from Kara in Crothersville, Indiana. You, of course, see all the power outage numbers here in, of course, the Metro Louisville area and throughout Wave Country here. About 1% out in many of our counties. If we can pull up real quick that Owen County tornado video just to show you that. That's just outside of our viewing area by a skosh. If we've got that queued up, you can see it right there. Holy cow, this was a little bit earlier today. Owen County, Kentucky, just north and east of our counties. You see the debris lifted into the air. Again, this is the Cincinnati Media Market there. But this was what we were concerned about today. Thankfully, we've not seen video like this within our counties, but this was just outside of our viewing area. And guys, we continue to monitor that circulation down.
Yeah, that gate to gate now is now up to 66.
Yeah, let's take a closer view of that. This is going to be over Wax. We're down near the Nolan River Lake area. I want to zoom back into that. That is going to be a problematic area. So let's, I'm going to just include Annetta, Ponderosa. We'll see if there's Canala Way. For folks that have places down at Nolan River Lake, there's Mutadir. So we're pretty much over the lake. If you know where Wax is, that's where we're seeing the, again, some of the stronger rotation. That sits just off to the south and east of
That's gone
Annetta.
Even higher now, a new scan.
Yeah, so you're pretty much, as we, let me put the velocity back on. You can see it even better. I'm on the reflectivity, but the velocity will show that as well. As we take a closer view, you'll notice as we've gone through time.
101.
So I want to
gate to gate now.
I want to go back, and I'm tracking that as we move over near where that is. I'm pointing out so people know where you are. We've gone across Nolan River Lake.
Possible debris signature north of Big Windy.
This is Wax. This is going to take us over near Pine Springs. Remember, we talked about Big Windy. This is the area we're watching. So this is the couplet. This is the rotation. This would be where there would be a tornado that would be imminent, and that's going to be across now, moving into western Hart County, not far from Roseburg. This is just south of Pine Springs. This would be the area of greatest concern, just north of the Big Windy area. So that would be a tornado that would certainly have potential. Let's see if we see any debris with that at all. We're just a little bit a ways from the radar, so I'm not sure we'll be able to see that, but let's go to our debris scope. And what we'll look at is in this same general area where we see the couplet on radar.
Yeah, right there.
And we see it.
Yeah.
So we do see that this could be a tornado that is on the ground, now moving into western parts of Hart County.
Weather Service just acknowledged the TDS, so the debris signature that Kevin's showing right now, so there may be an upgrade to the warning here very soon to the observed based on radar data, if not by ground.
So we're looking at now 3 parts of the radar. We have the reflectivity, we have the velocity, and we have the correlation coefficient, or the debris detector, that gives us an idea where we likely have some debris being lofted into the atmosphere, where we can see that this storm is likely producing some damage. With that, we would know that the tornado is likely on the ground at that point. This would be near Pine Springs. This is going to be moving off to the east. This storm is moving roughly at about 40 miles an hour. This would be concerning to those in parts of western Hart County. You should be in your tornado safe place as we speak. So if you're in western Hart County, from Pine Springs to Rosebud, all the way from Lines Mill to, say, Munfordville, you need to be in your tornado safe place. This is where we have the greatest sort of rotation. It is where we have some debris showing up on the radar. This is likely where you need to be seeking shelter and letting this storm pass. Get to your lowest level. That would be a basement or an underground shelter. You can see we're now to the observed tag on this, so this is exactly what we're looking at from the Weather Service. Boy, they've been doing a great job today. They do a great job all the time, but we appreciate the Weather Service and the work that they're doing on a day like today. We can see that this storm, as it's moving across Hart County, you really have to now be in your tornado safe place. This includes Bonnieville and Munfordville. This is observed. We have the tornado that's on the ground. We can see it by radar, and we have likely at this point, because it's daylight and we know we have folks that are sort of in the path of this storm. We also have one of our chasers, Corey Trent, is chasing this storm not far from this area. So we can take a look at his feed when it comes up. You'll just let me know in my ear, and if we see anything, we'll be able to show you. This is what this looks like rolling through the countryside. Obviously, we are in, not the best cell zone, but you can see the heavy rain falling there. Tough to chase storms in the middle of trees like this, but until we can get on the south side of that storm, which is where we go, we'll come back to the radar view. We'll take that when we have something to show. Just let us know when that is. You can see on the radar lots of lightning. I'm going to put up, we'll get rid of that live bug so I can see, thank you, and then we'll show that the velocity and that great rotation that shows up very vividly moving right into western Hart County. This is south of Broad Ford, just slightly north of Big Windy. If we were to track this off to the east, it's going to go very much between Bonnieville and Munfordville, but again, we're not exactly certain once we get that far out in time, the distance. It may be farther to the south, which is why that polygon increases in distance the farther out you go, or broadens out. Nonetheless, if you're in western Hart County and you're listening to us, you should be in your tornado safe place. Let's go over to Brian Good, who's putting some times on this.
Yeah, and it, just kind of taking off your lead there on that idea, I went all the way to I-65 is the stopping point. So where do we run into with this tornadic storm that is producing at least a radar observed tornado and has picked up some debris? So we know at some point it had been on the ground. We should know if it still is right now. It's hard to answer that, but in times and path, the community of Macon certainly right in the middle of that coming through. Yeah. Oh, okay. Right into the community of Macon and also into Kessinger, and looks like right into Litchfield Passing, I believe it is, right there on 65. That's where they're going to run into the core of the spin, as long as it maintains itself and doesn't end up what we call choking back around to allow it for it to weaken, which would be nice. We would love to see that. We don't have any confirmation of it being on the ground, but anytime we hear about that tornado debris signature that does light up, that gives us a good indicator that at some point it may have been on the ground, and at that point it may have been able to produce damage. All right, now you see the debris ball signature showing up on the radar. It's got an alert on it, just pops in to let us know, hey, it's kind of tracking along here. It's got several indicators that are now showing up where we're still trucking the debris. And let me switch over to show you what that looks like as we're monitoring how that will feed into the cell. Wow, that is a very strong signal now for the debris field. And again, that's northeast of Big Windy was the last scan on that. Let me hold on to that marker there and kind of look and see what we got for the current rotating part of the storm. And it's right on the southeast side of that circulation. So it's a very apparent tornado, at least based on what I'm seeing debris signature here. It's moving along now to the east. Now that is interesting, because now let me look at the radar and let's look and see where the wind field is now. And notice this scan hasn't updated yet, but I mentioned see where it places it, because according to the there we go, just updated as I went away from it. Sorry, here we go. Here it is. That's a strong signal now showing that likely tornado. I would say this is a likely tornado based on the radar here and the debris. That is right over that community of Macon. Macon, it's too late to take any action. If you're in a mobile home, just brace yourselves and hang on tight, all right? Don't want to venture outside. Kessinger is up next. You're right in the path, as well as Wines Gap there. You're also right into Winesap, excuse me, right in path, not far away from Cub Run, Kentucky. But that is the spot to watch. We bring back up again the debris field to kind of keep track of where that's being indicated, and it is matched up right over And that's a fairly strong signal of the debris field, and it could even develop some type of debris ball to it here very soon if it continues to get organized in its structure. Not quite there yet, but either way, this is where it could be shingles, pieces of metal. You never really know, but the radar is saying something that is not a raindrop. It's something that Mother Nature did not drop from that cloud is in that area, Kevin, and that's what our main concern is going to be with that kind of a signature. We have yet to see a signal like this, to this level anyway, all day.
No, this would be the strongest. This is the southernmost storm, which is obviously getting fed into a very prime environment. It has nothing to stop it. We've been watching Big Windy. This is the storm that we're looking at. I want to center that back up for us. Here in Louisville, our temperature's down to 75. We're in the clear here for those that may just be tuning into our coverage. We're watching the tornado warning to our south, moving closer to the Macon area. This is near Cub Run. When we look at the velocity, we can see the rotation. When we look at the debris field that we were just looking at, we can see that showing up as well between Macon and Cub Run, right along 88. We were pointing that out earlier. This is going to continue its trek to the east. Kessinger would be next in line as we continue to track this storm off to the east. So this is the debris that we're looking at. That means the tornado likely still on the ground, moving across western parts of Hart County. We're just now into Hart County, moving past Big Windy, Cub Run, and now making its way across 728. This will continue south of Macon, but just north of 88 and Cub Run, pushing over toward Kessinger and Winesap, likely just north of you. That's the greatest concentration of rotation that we have, and that is where we have not only the rotation, but the greatest couplet of velocity, where we see that wind, again, turning or spinning in the atmosphere, giving credence to the fact that we have the tornado tag on this now observed, meaning that there actually is a tornado that is on the ground. So that's one area that we continue to track. It is, in fact, the only area out of the entire viewing area that has a tornado warning. The rest of the viewing area almost storm-free. I'll put the radar on briefly before we go back. While we have severe thunderstorms moving across parts of southern Marion, Greene, Taylor, just now moving into Adair, and even parts of Hart County. Hart County is the one that has the greatest potential. That is where we have the debris. That is where we have seen on radar the tornado that has been observed. So we zoom back in with the debris alert showing up. You can see, again, notice the notch on the radar. I'm going to zoom back in. We'll square this up, and we have that storm passing Big Windy. And now let me pop on the velocity, and then we'll go to the debris. That velocity, again, still showing some great signatures, meaning very tight rotation. This comes with the observed tag still. It's a confirmed large and extremely dangerous tornado.
Yeah, they've upgraded to a considerable tornado warning.
Yes, and I'll put that on here. You can see that this is a confirmed large.
It's a PDS, a particularly dangerous situation.
This is moving toward Munfordville, east at 30 miles an hour. This is the strongest storm of the day. This is a tornado that is large and on the ground. This is life-threatening. This means you have to be in your tornado safe place. We're looking at the radar view. As we look at that, I'm going to point out some places, and then we're going to give you some in particular streets. So Brian's going to look at some street level mapping for you as I give you sort of the big picture of what to look at. I'm going to center up the radar one more time. If you're listening to my voice and you're in Hart County, you need to be in your tornado safe place. If you're in Munfordville, you have just a little bit of time to get there. If you are closer to Cub Run or past moving over toward Macon, you have very little time. So I'm going to zoom in again as we center this up. We're looking at Hart County. This is the southernmost part of our viewing area. Some folks get their weather information out of Bowling Green for Hart County. We've always been on the cable there, so we're going to contend with our coverage here. If you are in Macon, if you are in Forestville, if you're in Kessinger, if you're in Munfordville, or any place in between, you need to be in your tornado safe place. This is large circulation. Sometimes we say that it's broad, and that means that it's unidentifiable. This is large but identifiable, and this means that it is a large tornado on the ground. This tornado is on the ground, and it is producing some damage, and it's going to be moving near Munfordville, which is still a little bit of ways away. It's moving at 30 miles an hour, so you don't have a whole lot of time. If you're in Macon, you have even less time. Let's go over to Brian, who's going to give us some of the individual towns and roads that you need to be seeking shelter immediately in. Brian.
All right, thanks, Kevin. One of the areas that everyone travels to a lot as you travel, this is I-65 in the middle of your screen. One of the traveling spots is Munfordville. A lot of folks live in Munfordville, and a lot of sightseeing happens here too. A lot of people take this exit to venture out to eventually run into maybe even Mammoth Cave National Park is one of the routes you can get to in Cave City. But I-65, this is vacation season here. School hasn't started back up yet, and a lot of folks are traveling right now. So if you're able to reach them and you know they're taking that journey between Nashville and E-Town, Nashville to Louisville kind of zone, give them a call, see where they're at. If they're in that area, they see any sign that says Southern Kentucky here for Cave City, Munfordville be one of them, as well as you get into even Sonora, Kentucky, if they're heading south. Tell them just to find a spot. If they're able to pull off and wait, even if it doesn't look like it's going to storm there immediately and right away, it could be heading their direction, get into a spot they can get some shelter in, and we'll keep you updated. But Munfordville, unfortunately, is likely to take a direct hit from this tornado, the way this is looking, and it is getting stronger. It has wound up even more in the most recent scans. As Kevin mentioned, this is a large and extremely dangerous tornado. We don't get these type of tornado warnings often at all in wave country, and for it to be labeled a PDS tornado warning is a big deal, and you got to take this seriously. This is going to continue to lead to more problems as it continues to make that journey. It's another tornado warning for green. This is the extension for this one.
This is the PDS that they've
they're just extending all the way down to make sure everybody's fully aware down the line, which, okay, good. I'm glad that, I mean, this is, the tornado is getting so large now that the storm it's getting bigger than the polygon it was in, Kevin, so they had to draw a bigger one. But boy, this gives a big heads up for those on the other side of 65. They need that.
Yeah, Corey Trent's in Munfordville. We're going to get his feed up for you in just a second, so we'll be able to show you what this storm looks like as it approaches. This is the extension of that storm. Again, observed and considerable tornado warning, Barron, Green, Hart, and Metcalf. That will go until 6:30. That, again, is for parts of our viewing area, including very clip of Greene County. So we'll continue to track this. Should that hold together, Adair County would be in line for this. So that is the storm that we're watching. It continues to tighten up right over 88, moving from Forestville to Kessinger. This is the area of concern. Large tornado on the ground. This is confirmed. This is moving toward Munfordville and Rowletts. When we look at our storm chaser right out of Munfordville, Corey Trent's on the move. Just communicating with him. He was in Munfordville. He's going to move just a bit. You can see the rain is coming down there. The wind picking up just a bit if you look at the tree tops. That storm is still roughly, 15 miles away from him, maybe? Maybe not quite that far. 10, 15. So it's over 88. He's in Munfordville. Again, watching that storm move a little closer. He'll make sure he's in a safe place as we watch this storm move to a more populated area. When we think of Hart County, Munfordville is the heart of that county. It is the most populated region. It is a place where people know, if you're familiar with Horse Cave or Mammoth Cave or some of the attractions that they have down 65 as you approach the Nashville area, Hart County is popular for that. So a lot of folks have driven through there, even if you didn't know it, on I-65, and that is where we're watching this storm approach. That storm should approach I-65 somewhere near or just south of the Munfordville area. When we're looking at the radar view, and back to that, while we can still see that velocity show up with some very strong winds moving in, as we go back to look at some of the debris that may or may not be there, that is seemingly sort of washed out just a bit. And Brian, we can have that conversation here as we look at the debris, but it seems that last scan of the radar has gotten at least a little bit better of an indicator. Looking at the reflectivity, there's still a tremendous amount of water, lightning, and wind, though. And
I think what happens is very common, too. You get a lot of your debris that is going to be very concentrated closer to the actual radar beam, again, when it's lower in the atmosphere. When it gets really high in this large mesocyclone, the parent that is driving this entire storm, once it gets lofted even higher, it spreads out. So you're going to see the focus of all that debris that we can see a strong signal in initially near when this spin is happening. Once it gets thrown up in the sky, it gets spread out, not as easy to pick up. It may honestly be a challenge at times as it continues to make that journey, but there's no doubt it has still got the wind filled with it. And we've all been kind of reaching out, letting everybody know, like, hey, this is going to cross a very significant section here of I-65 where a lot lot of folks are traveling, and your service may go in and out sometimes traveling through here, so they may not get all the alerts. So hopefully everybody, if you know anybody traveling in that corridor from roughly around Bowling Green all the way up to E-Town, the section of it into Hart County where the time change is, when you go from Central Time and eventually Eastern Time, you're going to be driving through that marker. So that's the spot that is going to likely feature the interstate crossover. And it's worth mentioning, this is likely a bit of a delayed image, Kevin. It may be right over I-65 right now.
Yeah, you know, it takes a little while for the radar to get those images back and then map them out so everybody would be in the same boat on that, meaning as far as what we're looking at when we're in emergency weather, real-time imagery is tough to come by as these storms are moving. The good news is it's moving only at about 30 miles an hour. So the slower it moves, the better off we can keep up with it from the radar scans. I know Brian's familiar with that area going back and forth to western Kentucky. If you've been up and down 65, most folks will know the Munfordville area. That storm is approaching Munfordville as we speak. I'm going to ask to just get us in a quad box and keep Corey's image up with Brian. And if you want to put a radar on the bottom, just let's keep that up so we can keep everybody at home updated with what we're seeing. And if for some reason we lose the feed, we can take that down. Meanwhile, you'll notice the rotation showing up, moving through 88, Kessinger, Forestville, approaching Munfordville. That is the area of greatest concern. Clearly, it is where we have the strongest rotation. Back to check and see if we have any debris showing up on this. We did earlier. It was notable, and in fact, it was the most notable signature we had all day long. So this is the area, but it is not showing clearly on the debris tracker, which is some good news as we speak here. When we go back to our home view, allow me just to go back to the radar for a second. I know a lot of people are watching like, well, what about my neighborhood? You've been talking about Hart County. That's barely in the viewing area. Well, you're right. The rest of the viewing area is pretty much clear with the exception of Hart, Greene, Taylor, and Adair. All right. So Hart, Greene, Taylor, and Adair are the only counties that we still have a concern with. And the greatest concern is Hart County. And that's where we have the tornado warning. It's 5:51. The warning will continue as we roll on into the top of the hour. And the extension of that will likely take it beyond. So we wind up looking at the reflectivity. We can see the heavy rain. We've got a lot of lightning. The most important and the most sort of intense is when we check that velocity. You can clearly see the swirl on that. We talk about the radar, which is situated at Fort Knox. Greens go toward the radar, reds go away. So when we have that couplet that shows those right together, and especially when they're intertwined together, that is clearly rotation that we have showing up on the radar, moving right into the Munfordville area. You can see a live view of Munfordville right to the center of me right here. This is Corey Trent, and he's tracking this storm as it moves into Munfordville. So we appreciate him and his view of what that looks like coming into Hart County. This is it. The winds are picking up. We clearly can see those winds swaying that tree in the foreground and the background. That storm is approaching Munfordville right where he is right now. So we're watching this as this storm moves in and the winds are picking up intensely. And you can see that just based on the tops of those winds.
Do we have any way to talk to him at all, Kevin?
You know, I can call him on the phone, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, I know he's trying to pay attention to.
He's piloting the car, and it would be easier to talk to who's in the passenger seat, but we'll take his feed and we can see if something happens. Maybe we can give him a call. You can notice those flags they're whipping in the wind as he sort of readjusts to get out of harm's way.
Yeah, it's definitely hitting right now. I think he's thinking, okay, I need to get to a little bit of a different spot to maybe brace up against here. As that court. Notice how vivid that lightning has been too.
Right.
With the strikes rolling into that area. I saw some of the flags that were blowing there. Usually when you get a flag blowing into the storm, it's a sign that an updraft, it's getting stronger. And that looked to be the case because he's aiming toward the storm there, and a lot of the flags are blowing in that direction, and some of the trees are too. So if that's the case, this thing is not showing signs of getting weaker. It's pulling in more warm air around it like a vacuum cleaner located around Munfordville, and it's pulling that warmer air in to allow it to sustain itself for longer. And the latest radar scope does show it there crossing over. So as we stay with this image here, we're going to be watching the radar carefully and see if we see any trend. But we can at least tell you that it has crossed over now I-65. The center of the circulation has. Now, I'm not sure where he is in relation to that particular rotating area. But it looks like, and I'm just guessing, that he is showing the rain-free base there into the distance. So if there's anything on the ground there, it would soon emerge in that particular image.
Yeah, we'll again in Munfordville, we are looking at the images from Corey Trent. The trees starting to pick up. He was situated in Munfordville, so the strongest part of this moving likely just south. So depending on which side of town he's on there would depend on where we're looking. That looks like the Family Medical Center that we're looking at there, and then you can see those flags just whipping. Not a whole lot of traffic out as you would expect. Tornado sirens going off across Hart County. The wind is picking up. We can see the trees. That's a good view right there where you can see those trees really swaying in the wind. The core of that storm is moving through at this point. Whether there's an actual tornado on the ground or not is still yet to be determined. We know there was because we had that identified not only by radar but by debris from the radar and coming in from storm chasers. Now that we've caught up with that, we can see that that storm continues to move on the southwest side of Munfordville, and that will continue to impact parts of Hart County as it moves across.
And I think he's trying to position himself too to where he can get in behind it as soon as it passes by the town. Hopefully he can find a route to come in behind the storm and get a good view of it where the sun's even trying to come out on the other side there, Kevin. So yeah, it's tough. This one's got such an angle to it where a lot of the heavier rain's a little bit lopsided, but blowing well in advance of it. It's pouring rain in advance of this.
And just so you guys know, there is a traffic camera in Munfordville. It's having connectivity issues right now. So we're monitoring that, seeing if it comes back up, but we'll let you know.
Okay. That's another thing I was looking at from Corey's shot is, do we have any power outages with these winds even moving through Munfordville, and whether that's a problem with the traffic cam or not?
Yeah, and I've been looking at some of the, see if we see any purple flashes or not of some of the transformers. That may not be the case in all areas, depending on which way he's angled at. But that's a good point. That's usually your telltale sign something's going on when you start to see those flashes like that.
Yeah, you can see the power lines are still up and the street lights are still on there. Well, we're looking at images just behind me here from Munfordville. We're looking at the radar view. This is the velocity, same zone. This is going to go just to the south and southwest of Munfordville as it moves across Interstate 65, and it will move eventually to the east and continue tracking across 31E, eventually scraping into perhaps parts of Greene County, which is technically under the tornado warning as well. So this is the zone that we're watching. If you're viewing us from Hart County, we've been telling you for probably more than a half hour now that you needed to get to your tornado safe place. You should be in your basement. We are watching this storm closely. It really is the only storm to track across the area. It certainly is the strongest storm of the day.
Okay, he's going through it now. So it looks like at least a heavier core.
Let's just
of the rain.
Take Corey there and we'll watch him as he rolls through. Again, this is one of those areas where you get into. Kentucky is a terrible state to try to chase tornadoes in. Out west, the roads are gridded. We have a tornado warning observed coming in. This is going to be for Greene, Barron, Hart, Metcalf. Confirmed large, extremely dangerous tornado over Munfordville, moving southeast at 30 miles an hour. So that's the latest information coming in from the latest warning that we have from the National Weather Service. We're watching that. Let me go to the radar, split us out again so we can see where this latest warning is.
And we do have a TriMark camera in Munfordville. It is working. If we can put that in another box, it's TriMark 1.
All right, so
you can see it pretty well that it's going nuts down there on the interstate. Lots of folks with their flashers on.
So what we've done is we're going to put up the latest warning, and you can see that's going to include parts of not only Hart County, where we have Munfordville. The tornado is over Munfordville, but as this moves across 31E, it will move toward Donensburg. That's in Greene County, so that's the Greene County part of the storm. And then down to the south, we get into parts of Barron and Metcalf counties. So this is the storm. When we look at that, we have the velocity that we can show. That's where we have the great rotation that's showing up on this. That storm is over Munfordville.
And now he's on the, by the way, he's on the southeast side on 31. I'm able to track him by some of the signs. On 31, heading south, he just passed 88. So he's very close to where that core is, but the signal is going in and out now.
And that's the tough part down there. The cell service isn't the best once you get away from the interstate. So if he's near 88, that's going to be well, once you get outside of the Munfordville area, that's going to take you over this way, I guess. So
yeah, right into the
Rowlett's area. So he'd be right in the core of that.
Yeah.
Unless he's going to go up and then try to come back down 31E, perhaps. You get into some better roads. Well, you can see the cameras are taking a hit there, both because of cell service and in some cases the very heavy rain. So the images behind us, Brian's keeping an eye on the rotation, the velocity, same thing I have up behind me. This is Corey Trent. He is chasing the storm. He is in Hart County. This is the Trimark camera, and that one's I-65 northbound, so I'm not exactly sure, but it's
in Bonneville. It just defaulted to. We're trying to get Munfordville back online.
Okay, so we're Bonneville there. It's cleared out there. No issues in Bonneville. South of Bonneville, it's a totally different story. That takes you to Munfordville and Rowlett's. This is moving across 31W. This is the tornado that is on the ground. This is the one that we have been talking about for a while now. When we look at the debris, we can see if we have any of that. Yes, we do. Right over the Rowlett's area. So once it moves through populated areas where it can pick something up and that radar comes back and says, hey, this isn't a raindrop, this isn't even hail, this is something far different, that's when we can start to see returns like this, what we call the correlation coefficient. And within that, the radar paints it a different color on the radar, giving us an indicator that we indeed have problems, and meaning that the storm is kicking up debris. So we have debris on the debris tracker once again, Brian.
All right, I did see one small decrease slightly in its structure, but on speed as the rear flank is trying to get him wrapped into this, and we'll see whether it can actually cycle it through. Let's hope it just weakens it and collapses it, and that does a cycle where we have another one develop downstream. Given the environment, there's nothing south of here to stop that. But it's something that we're going to be watching. So the Weather Service, as we know, have done a good job on these warnings today, drawing these polygons. They've got this one out all the way into the southwest corner of Green. As Kevin mentioned, we're likely to see more. I think we will. At the very least, severe thunderstorm warnings will keep going all the way into Adair. But this is a big heads up for those of you into southwestern side of Greensburg, all the way down to the county line itself, in fact, and those of you even in Adair County, just a big heads up. Let's hope this weakens even more. But we need a few more scans to confirm. Sometimes you can't just take one scan as gospel as that's the status of it. You need a few to kind of do a loop and correlate on that.
And I've noticed those pixels. I mean, the orange pixels on that.
That's about 115.
Are the highest we've seen today.
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah, I mean, that is wicked. That is now across 31W. That's going to approach the Hardeeville area. It's passing Rowlett's. This is going to take it over toward 31E. Let me go back to the radar, and I'll put the velocity on in a second. I'm going to zoom back down to that tornado warning. Again, looking at that storm, we're watching a number of feeds coming in. We can see that to our south, we've got the tornado, a couple of tornado warnings.
He's got his locator up. Well, he just took it away, but he has locator up. He is on the southeast side of Munfordville. That's his location there.
All right, and that again takes us south of Munfordville, which is where we have the strongest storm on the radar at this point. You can sort of see that curl in there as it moves across 65, approaching 31E. This is likely to stay just south of the Canmer area. I'm going to put the velocity back on. We'd expect that greatest rotation right there, and it is. So that is what we're looking at, confirmed by radar, confirmed by the debris detection. That is where we have the debris showing up. So it's likely even displaced furthermore. So it's getting closer to 31E. So let's zoom into that area. In fact, I'm just going to keep the debris up for now as we zoom in. This will give folks in Hart County an idea of what we're looking at with this large tornado on the ground. We're keeping an eye on Hart County. We've got live images coming in thanks to Corey Trent. We appreciate that. But if you're in Uno, if you're in Hardeeville, right along 31E, that is not a safe place to be. You have to get low. You need to be in your tornado safe place. We're tracking this extremely dangerous tornado moving across Hart County, kicking up debris on the ground. Again, this is a PDS, a particularly dangerous situation for that tornado warning to be issued. The National Weather Service has said you must get in your tornado safe place. Again, this is the strongest storm of the day so far that we've been tracking anywhere across Kentucky or Indiana. That continues to make its movement off to the east. It's moving roughly at about 30 to 40 miles an hour, fluctuating in forward speed just a bit. Back to, again, the velocity. That's the debris we're looking at. Here comes the velocity. Displaced a little. Again, the time. It takes time to get these scans in, which in fast-moving storms storms becomes frustrating, but that likely couplet of that velocity is probably closer to here by now, and we'll see that update in the next scan or two of the radar. But Uno, right along 31E to Hardeeville would be that place to see.
About 1,000 customers without power in Hart County. That's about 9% of Hart County.
Okay, so power outages are occurring. Brian, I'm surprised, though, with Corey's location, and I mean, the trees are whipping there, but I'm surprised we haven't seen anything even more severe than what we've seen.
Well, a couple of things with that. One, it's likely one of those setups that could be bouncing just a bit, given the terrain in that area of Kentucky. It's very hilly. I mean, Bonneville has had, I believe, 2 tornadoes in the Bonneville area, and that terrain, I remember, is just drops off dramatically into Hart County on 65, so it's hard to see anything at all until you're over the hill. So a very dangerous setup there. And two, I got a feeling we're going to be hearing a lot more about this in areas where we're just outside of our range. Weather Service is already calling this a fairly long track tornado that it's going to be, as far as its pulse determination on that, as one that will be in really for the year for its long track, the way this is holding. I did go back and retrace its steps, too, back into when we were getting hints of this back into Litchfield and Grayson County. That's when it started, and once it emerged out of Grayson, we started to see the rotation tighten up a bit more. And I know I get another warning. I'll be quick here. It's heading to that southeast corner here, but the way it's looking, it will likely graze right into that borderline there as you get into the southern part of Greene County and the northwest side of Adair County as it moves to the south and east. But that southeast jog is very common in tornadoes that are on the ground.
All right, Brian, this continues. This is, again, the tornado warning for parts of Barron, Greene, Hart, which is where we're located now, watching it, and Metcalf, again, observed, considerable. Those are tags and sources and threats that you don't want to see, because that means it is happening. This is a tornado that is on the ground. Brian just pointed out the National Weather Service saying this will go down as a long track tornado, meaning they've been keeping an eye on the debris detection along its path as well. And we'll see if it ever lifted, but we know that we have debris a number of times along that path. The velocity gives us great indication of where we have the strongest wind at this point. That's moving across 31E. Let's zoom in a little tighter so we can give you an idea of what to expect as we track this storm. Moving just off to the south of Hardeeville, approaching La Grande. That will be making its way just north of the Uno community. So this would be the zone of concern. That's going to take it across some of the farming communities of Hart County, moving closer to 570 and eventually over toward 436. So those are communities that are in the path of this as we move this storm off to the east at about 30 to 40 miles an hour. Last check on that, that storm was moving to the southeast at about 35 miles per hour. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit more here as we give a forward indicator of where this is going. And let me lift that to the north just a bit. I know we're in tight on this storm, but I want to give folks in Hart County just the greatest heads up that we can. We're tracking that across 31E right now. Next in line would be 570, close to that La Grande area. That's going to then move it on toward 436. So those are some of the areas of concern as we track that storm to the east and southeast, 35 miles an hour. Ryan just mentioned a few minutes ago that we had about 1,000 customers without power. More will be added to that, I'm sure, as this storm continues its movement across Hart County. Additional thunderstorms are on the map. I'm going to put the radar on a second, and I'll zoom back out. For us, this warning is in place until 6:30. That's 5:30 their time. That goes into parts of Greene County as well. So that will be the area that we watch. We also have the tornado warning that extends just off to the east of the Campbellsville area, down toward not far from, say, Jamestown. So that's another area in Kentucky where we have a few tornado warnings. The bulk of those are off to our east, but we also have one back to the west and the one in our viewing area down near Hart and Greene counties of Kentucky.
Okay, we may have some damage here.
Okay.
Let's take Corey's feed if we can. I see some of the power line poles that have been at least knocked over, but I think he just kind of gauged for his safety, can he get through there? He said where folks are staying outside there as well. Looking now, he was again on the southeast side of Medfordville, but he was drifting back in an area that what he's trying to do is see what got hit that has already been passed through with that particular passing of the damage. It looks like there may be a line across the road. So that's what you don't want to do. You never want to cross the power line. That's certainly a power line that is knocked down. So you got to always say, just turn around, find a different route, don't touch it. Just notify utility companies, and they will take care of that. That's where a lot of folks lose their life and are in the aftermath moments of a storm when everyone ventures out and they get outside and see the debris. Power line poles being down, not a good thing whatsoever. Kevin, did you find Corey?
Well, I've got him on the phone, so we'll do this old school, and I'll just hold him up to the microphone here as we wait for his camera to buffer in. Corey Trent's down in Hart County. Corey, tell me what you're seeing and where you are from the vantage point that we had. It looks like you were somewhere close to some of the damage that may have happened just south of Munfordville.
Yes, we got right within probably an eighth of a mile, quarter mile of the circulation that came through. There are trees and power lines down across the road. I don't see any structures at this time that are damaged, but still, it just went through maybe 5 minutes ago.
And are you in Munfordville or just south of there?
I'm just south. Give me just a second here. I am near Charlie Dowling Road, and it's like South Dixie Highway near a Marathon.
Okay.
If I'm not mistaken.
And as far as the scope of damage that you've seen, we saw some of the power lines that look like they may have been down, some trees. You mentioned no structures, but how widespread the power lines and trees have you seen?
Right now, from my vantage point, it looks eighth of a mile. If that, it was pretty spotty. Back towards the city.
Okay. Well, we won't keep you on the line. We know that you're chasing the storm. We'll check back in if you have anything. We appreciate the images that we're able to look at here. Our viewers appreciate them. No doubt some lives being saved today by the advanced warning and being able to see what's actually happening. So thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you, Kevin.
Okay. That was Corey Trent. He oftentimes is a storm chaser for us, heads out across Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, anywhere across the Ohio Valley chasing those storms today. He happened to be, we were communicating earlier this morning. It was like, I'm going to head out this afternoon, so give me a shout. And we were talking throughout the afternoon, and he went down to Hart County. He said, I'm headed toward Bonneville. Let me know if there's anything going on. And then, boom, the tornado warnings came out. And would you know that was the largest storm of the day? That is where we continue to watch that storm moving through. So appreciate Corey and the effort that he puts into chasing storms and staying safe while he does it. The velocity still shows quite a couplet showing up. This is about to move out of Hart County. It will likely scoot into far western parts of Greene County. So we'll see. I suspect that the next warning will include a sliver of southern Greene as we move this down, likely into Adair County. So that's what we're looking at now. When we zoom into this, we can see who's being impacted the most at this point. We just saw some of those images coming in where we had damage just on the southern side of Munfordville, near LeGrand, moving over towards Center as you push into...
And it has cycled, by the way, through. So that was what we were seeing earlier. So they've adjusted that to just a radar-indicated tornado, no longer observed.
Okay. And what should confirm that would be a simple look at the debris just to see. So that would be the area. And you notice those whites and blues have been faded out of that. So just another double check to see what's happening from the view of the radar. So the velocity still shows the rotation. Hopefully, the lack of actually seeing the debris on the radar is an indicator that we can gradually fade out of this. But at this point, we're still dealing with some rotation by radar and some very strong winds. And clearly, we've been dealing with a tornado that has touched down. We saw the damage. We've got a storm chaser on it that's also witnessed that damage. About an eighth of a mile was the estimate for that damage. It was sporadic in intensity and in sort of the damage locations, as Corey explained. So the National Weather Service will now do their job job probably tomorrow and go out and survey the track of that storm to see if it lifted at all or if it was on the ground the entire time and how strong it was, what type of damage it did. But at this point, our concern right now still is within that tornado warning area as this storm moves across southeastern parts of Hart County, making its way into eventually Greene County, which would be just over here. And that's the other county in our viewing area. Brian?
All right. Yeah, we'll watch that. The circulation. It's probably going to take a while to spin back down, but it certainly looked like it was starting to cycle through not long after passing through the core of Munfordville. That was the first sign things were getting a little out of whack to where it'll hopefully be a little bit of its demise. Let's hope that's the case. But I have a feeling the core seemed to be the strongest. While it was impressive in Munfordville, it was really strong just west of Munfordville. And I think the majority of your damage reports, even close to the community of B, just north of Mammoth Cave. I do think in that southeast side there of Grayson and that west central side of Hart, that is the area that I think we're going to be seeing what contributed to all the debris that made it on the radar will likely be found in that zone, mainly west of Munfordville, Kevin. So we saw the most intense part, and we saw it really get organized. We can tell it was strong. That body was just throwing the debris aloft at much higher levels in the atmosphere, and now we're starting to see everything kind of just relax and collapse a bit, but still that structure is held together to where it gets still develop one heading into far southern Kentucky. But in the short term right now, I think everyone's catching a little bit of a sigh of relief there.
Well, and that's especially true because we're still well into the heat of the day down there. I mean, we've bounced back to 82 here in Louisville, but they're likely still closer to 90 in parts of Adair County. So that's where these storms are moving into. It's an untapped environment down in our southernmost communities. So we're not giving up on these storms and the threat that they pose for parts of Greene, Taylor, and Adair as these storms make their way out of the viewing area. Let me just put on briefly the entire viewing area and that reflectivity. This is going to show the radar imagery. Obviously, we're dry for the most part. Now, there are a few showers that have tried to develop here or there, but the threat of severe weather has ended across all of Indiana and much of our area in Kentucky. The exception would be in our southern tier of counties. Obviously, Hart, Greene, Taylor, and Adair. That would be the area of main concern. Now, we look at some of the images we have. Obviously, we've got another storm chaser on the road. This one's I-65 south headed down to E-Town. A little bit of a jam up there. Skies clearing out just a bit in E-Town. When we look at the radar, we do have a little line of showers, maybe a few rumbles of thunder with that, but nothing severe. You have to push well to the south to see that. I'm going to zoom into that area down that way, and with that, you're going to see that, and notice the power outages too. They keep ticking up down across parts of Hart County. We're now over 1,000, in fact, over 1,200 customers without power in Hart County. That's one of the larger power outages we have. That's expected. That was the largest storm we had. Now, the population's not as high there as it might be across, say, parts of Oldham County or Jefferson County, but you can see 1,200 customers without. That's about 11% of the population in Hart County.
Okay, a new tornado warning is going to be issued. It's for the circulation for Greene and Metcalf.
So this one also will be the extenuation of that storm we were watching. So we expect this. Notice it doesn't come with the observed tag, but it does come as radar indicated. This will go until 7 o'clock. This is for Adair, Hart, Greene, and Metcalf counties. So same storm we've been watching. No need to let our guard down just yet on this as it moves into a favorable environment with a daytime heating that we've had. These storms continue to feed off of that as the southern flank of this moves to the south and just about out of the viewing area. So we've maintained this tornado warning for quite some time. The velocity on this still shows up right over center. This is now moving through Metcalf, but will eventually hit parts of barely scraping into Greene, and then we'll see how it reacts as it moves closer to Adair County, moving down toward the community of Weed, passing by Beachville, moving through center as we speak right now. That's the velocity. Let's just see if we have any debris. I suspect not, since the Weather Service didn't put any tags on that for us. So no, not at this point. So that is good news. That is the lone storm that we have in the viewing area that's sort of causing any problems. The radar shows plenty of water that's falling falling with these storms as well. And with that, we've had some areas of flash flooding. So be mindful of that. Even though the rain may have ceased in your area, if the water's high, don't drive through it. Let the water recede. We say that time and again, but it still happens. Temperatures in Louisville have eased back. We were in the 70s as the rain moved through, now back to the lower 80s. A south wind still indicating that the front has not passed us yet. So once the front passes, we'll see northerly winds. That'll bring in the cooler, drier air for us. That's going to mean Wednesday, Thursday, Friday of this week look great across the area. But obviously, this is the price we're paying to get that cold front past us, and that's bringing these robust thunderstorms, and in this case, a tornado that has been on the ground, at this point only indicated by radar, moving across center, and that's going to take it down toward Beachville. That will move right across 68 as you work your way into extreme green, western parts of Greene County and then western Adair County. Let's go over to Brian Good.
All right. Yeah, a couple things. So I was tracking to see if tracking to see on the duration on that storm, but it's still ongoing to the south and east. We'll get more numbers on that in a second. Been noticing on the velocity winds, and this is how we are. One of the easier ways to track any type of circulating storm, right, is going to be in that circulation that was near the center area that Kevin was talking about, center Kentucky, that is, not the map, but the city. Now, as we look into that map in a more general sense, we have been noticing the wind fields averaging about 30 to about 50 miles per hour right now showing up with this. That's not as bad as what we had earlier into Hart County when it was averaging about 112 to 115 miles per hour, indicating a tornado was ongoing. So we'll monitor this because this is how it happened in Litchfield. It started off this way, and a new circulation on the very front end of this was able to redevelop and then take off again. Will that happen again? Not saying that it will. Not obviously saying that it won't, but it's certainly an environment, and it already has the base leg here. It's already got the ground floor done. It's got even the living room furniture moved in. It's almost there. So it's just a matter of whether or not they're going to turn the house lights on or not, and then there you go, back to a tornado again. So you just got one of those setups. You got to just watch it each and every scan as it makes that journey there to the south and east to see how it will continue to turn. It did obviously take a pretty right-hand turn too as it made its way there across portions of the Hart County area out of Grayson itself. I was trying to see if I can do a track on this. Hold on one second, see if it'll load. There we go. Now I think it's loading. So I would say roughly this southeast side here of Litchfield through Munfordville and maybe to just beyond that. We'll be fair on that. So this has potential to have been on the ground for about 30 miles. For a duration there, if that ends up being a solid track. And that's confirmed by the Weather Service. That's something they will work on, but still decent amount of time to be on the ground. Just don't know the intensity of it, and that is something that is determined by the damage more so than anything, which will be done in post-analysis there. Meanwhile, for those of you in Greensburg and you're worried about this, well, the good news is I can tell you, you're far enough north, you're going to get some heavy rain, lightning, thunder, already are, in fact. Maybe a little bit of wind. But the circulating point of this, and if there's going to be anything to redevelop that can be a tornado, that will miss you. And it will miss 95% of Greene County. But right on the border, just keep your guard up. And this will be certainly true for those of you southwest of Columbia, as we just have to wait and see what happens with this. Is it going to cycle through again? Is it going to develop another tight rotation? We're back to another observed tornado warning. We're back to the whole ball game again, and then it weakens again. That may happen through that entire polygon to get you into Adair County. Just know that we're going to have to take it one scan at a time there as it develops. But just be listening. I know the sirens are going off. Stay in your safe spot. Take your phone, your smart device with you, whether it's an iPad or an iPhone, whatever the case may be, and listen to our voices there, Kevin.
Brian, where this storm first originated was up in Grayson County as we started watching it, and the emergency manager there is saying that in the Broadford area, 8 structures were heavily damaged. Searches are being conducted at this point. One removed from the structure with a possible injury. So, again, that was parts of Grayson County. And as that storm moved through, it went into Hart County, and now we're tracking it across parts of extreme southern Greene County, and that will go into western parts and the southern.
And it is developing a new circulation. So, it's getting stronger.
Let me go back and I'll zoom into that for the folks watching, and you can notice that this storm we've never given up on in terms of watching it, because these southern storms, anytime you have a storm on the south side, it has the greatest potential of increasing in intensity simply because it's feeding off of the untapped environment. And yes, you can see right over center, moving right along the Greene County border. So we've got Greene, Edmondson over into Dare County. I'm going to zoom into that for you. We see it right along 865. Let me just zoom back into that. And then as we zoom in from center back down, I'll make sure I include parts of Greene County.
Up to about 82 right now on its gate-to-gate.
Yeah, so the gate-to-gate shear, the winds that are going beside each other, that's an impressive total. We had those as high as, what were they earlier? 115.
Yeah.
So we're right along 869, just off to the east of center. This is going to be the area of greatest concern where we see this uptick in rotation. It is pixel by pixel, and that matters. I mean, when you think, gosh, sort of pixelated. Yeah, we like that because we need the pixels to help identify where we have the greatest rotation, and it really is important. So here's the county border. You can see the latest scan on that, flattened it out just a bit, but still there, shifting it a little bit farther to the south, and that's been the trend throughout the day. As the storms individually are moving east, the whole line is gradually moving south because that front is moving through, and it's like, hey, we're going whether you want to or not. So everything along it's just sort of colliding into it. In some cases, rotating, and that's what we've noted where we have the greatest rotation in some of the stronger wind fields. Now, the greatest threat of tornadoes actually across eastern Kentucky, and that's where we have even more tornado warnings. So we've had this one, which was a fairly long track tornado. At this point, we can't tell if it's on the ground or not. So the indication is it's radar indicated, but we know that this storm has produced a tornado that was on the ground for a long time. And we were not only tracking that, but we had our storm chaser, Corey Trent, out tracking that storm as well. And we appreciate the views that he's been sharing. You can see another chaser. This is another one of our team out across parts of Hardin County. Working your way in Hardin County, looking to the south, you can see that darkening sky, ominous with severe weather moving across parts of Hart, Greene, and Adair counties. So that's what it looks like from the vantage point of I-65 looking south. For us, looking in Louisville to the south, this is the core of the severe weather, and this is moving across parts of Edmondson County, scraping barely into parts of Greene County. Adair County would be next in line for us to keep a close eye on as we continue to track this right along where you see this branch out. And Brian, you're looking at that same zone for us, so it's 869 and 70. So that's the zone, and you have it circled there. We can take a look.
Yeah, just looking to see how this is going to evolve here, because the next scan just updated even more. So that's looking at rainfall, as we were looking at there on the radar, showing the intensity of the rain. Now we bring in the wind field, and now you can see this is, I kind of even drew a circle around where it would likely be spinning there around 869 and 70, just southwest of Little Barron, north of Niblock, and south of Center. We've been talking about Center a lot here. That's the spot as this continues to tighten. The one thing I haven't seen yet is any type of debris. Now, there's one pixel that has shown up in that, but we need more than that on a scan to determine that factor. It may be very well a case that's over a lot of fields, or wooded areas may not have as much yet that we have, a lot of low-lying greenery, and therefore you don't see as much of a debris signal just yet. But whenever we get that signal that really lights up, that usually tells us that something a little more substantial has been hit. And that's never a good sign when you see that, if you can understand where I'm going with that. So we're going to be watching this carefully to see how this scan evolves. But we do know by just looking at the wind field alone, this has certainly resumed a very similar structure to what was reminiscent of western Hart County. I got a feeling this may be upgraded to another observed tornado on the radar trend here. So be alert for those in northeastern side there of Metcalfe County, right on that border there of Greene and Adair.
All right, Brian, thanks. These are some of the storm reports that have been coming in throughout the day. Obviously, we started with severe weather in Indiana with trees down, had a tornado warning up around Cincinnati, had one in our area moving into the Carroll County area. That started just after 3 o'clock. With that, we wound up seeing back to the south more Thunderstorms with damage, wind moving across parts of southern Indiana from Clark County, Jefferson County, across the river near Goshen, trees, power lines down there, right through Louisville where we had some flooding, and then we continued to add up some of the damage that's been coming in out of out of Grayson County, Hart County, likely to see some in Greene and possibly Adair before it's over with as we track this final storm through the region. That said, if you are in the tornado warning now in parts of southern and western parts of Greene County or western Adair County, the tornado safe place is in the basement, away from windows. If you don't have a basement, the lowest level. Oftentimes that away from window part just puts you in the center. That could be a bathroom, it could be a staircase underneath of that, could be anything as long as it's in the middle. Sometimes it's just a closet. Regardless, you don't want to be on an outer wall where there may be windows on the lowest level or where there may be debris that pushes into the outer walls. So in the center, lowest level. The big board shows we still have the tornado warning for parts of Adair, Greene, and Hart. That goes for another 33 minutes. The one previous will expire in 3 minutes, so it was a replacement. So we still have until the top of the hour. We're coming up on 6:30. This is going to take us till 7 o'clock tonight as we continue with weather coverage. You've noted that we've had chasers out watching the storms. Corey Trent's back at it down in parts of Hart County, and that is a live feed coming in from parts of Hart County. That's where we saw some of the damage from earlier, which was in Munfordville, trees and power lines down there. At this point, what we're watching across the entire area would be those storms transitioning to the south. They have produced some power outages. Munfordville now up to over 23% of its customers reporting power out. That would be over 2,600 customers without power. Second on the list in terms of percentage would be Washington County, Kentucky, and that's 10%, coming in at 759 customers without power. Flooding has also been an issue in places. That's easing for most as the rain comes to an end. But at this point, all of the storms are well to the south, and that is where we continue with the tornado warning that's been ongoing across our southernmost communities. This is going to be down across parts of far southern. I mean, this barely clips Greene. It moves through Metcalfe, Edmonton. It also goes into Adair just south of Columbia. Let me center that up and we'll look at the velocity on this as well. And I know Brian's tracking the same thing. I can see that you have that up. So Brian,
they may redraw this to just account for that more south jog, which will be good for Greene County. We'll be able to clear Greene. Doubt we'll be able to clear Adair, but at least Greene has some hope here in the next 10 to 15 minutes that they may be far enough north that as this takes more of that south dive, especially at the most recent cycling that it's done, that southward dive there, I'm hoping, Kevin, would be enough to get Greene out of the picture. But still got to feel for those in Metcalfe County, because this is going to take it right into the community of Edmonton, and that's also a decent-sized town.
Yeah, you're right. So we've had several, it's been on the ground so long for when it was on the ground that now it's sort of like, well, it could still touch down, and if it does, it's now moving across another populace where we have a decent number of people, and that's always concerning. If it's one thing to see a tornado on the ground rolling across farmland, whole nother thing when it's going through a populated community. You can see that that rotation is going to be south of Greene County. So I agree, Brian, as that moves off to the south and east, could still clip parts of Adair, but Greene should be allowed to bounce out of that latest warning. So we'll see if they update that as the storm continues its progression off to the southeast at about 35 miles an hour. That's what we're looking at on the current radar view in terms of velocity. This is that couplet, the greens toward the radar. Notice they are also seeing that southern movement. This could be good for Adair County because now they're saying, well, as the storms work their way south, they're moving more south than east. And you can see the latest warning on that, taking it farther south and not necessarily into Adair. They're not getting rid of that warning just yet. We'll see how the next few scans of the radar go. But as we put this into motion, let me clear off my marks, and then let's put it into motion. We'll play this, and we'll see if we see that jog. So as it comes into here, notice it's turning. So it comes across Munfordville, and then it starts to turn. So as that turns, they're saying, well, we put the cone out, but it needs to be widened on the western side. So this may go just off to the west of Adair County, which would be some great news, right? Right. All right, Brian, what do you got?
I was just agreeing with you. Yeah.
I'm just agreeing with myself. I'm like, yes, that's right. Right? Yes, right.
Waiting for the gallery to kick in one here.
No applause, no nothing.
Yeah. Well, you're right. We definitely are hoping for that turn that happens there. I like how they've drawn this too, because if they've done an overlapping one, it would have been really confusing. So bumping it up against the previous one and then chopping away at the previous one, I think will work easier for those of you to understand. So what will likely take place then is that gets a little more south and east. They'll be able to take a line and chop just like that. Chop right into it and cut away that northern section and only keep the two warnings kind of side by side, but working as a team to get the idea that it's diving more south than it is to the east. Ryan Hoke is standing by. Now, Ryan, I've been saying you've been talking to all the viewers.
Yes.
I'm sure there's quite a few on. Everyone's been asking a lot of the same questions in some cases, but you may have heard some interesting stories alone, or at least feedback of what people have been out and about looking at as these storms have drifted on by.
Yeah, lots of reports of trees and branches down in a lot of folks' backyards, especially from Louisville and up toward parts of southern Indiana, like we saw earlier. We did get this photo in from Karen Dickerson, and this was via the Wave Weather app here, and you'll notice kind of this appendage on this storm here. Was this a tornado? Probably not. Likely what we call a scud cloud here, but Karen had her eyes out, and of course she submitted her photo. At the top of the Wave Weather Facebook page right now is a big, and I think it's purple box now that I've put up there, asking for your damaged photos and videos from down in Hart County and down in Grayson County. We understand we've had some pretty significant damage near the Broad Ford area, of eastern Grayson, right on the Hart County line. So please, if you can do so safely, submit there or via the Wave Weather app. We can see all of that in real time. I did want to point out Munfordville and, of course, the Hart County area here. You are now down to 30.5% of tracked customer without power. That is nearly 3,400 customers in Hart County. This is some pretty significant power line damage that's likely occurred. We saw that from Corey Trent Stream with those power lines leaning over. That's likely contributing to what we're seeing down there. Hello to Marion County. You guys still have about 2% without power, 225 customers. And then we get you to Grayson County. This all kind of started in eastern Grayson County here, so it's no surprise they have over 800 customers without power. That's about 4.7%. Here in Louisville, we're in pretty good shape. We dodged the worst of this, about 1,226 customers without power. One more, and that's going to be Hardin County, about 510 customers without power. So we continue to monitor our social media feeds, communication with the National Weather Service, and of course we're always streaming live on Wave Weather Now, our 24/7 weather live stream. Whenever there's severe weather, we're there. That's where we're at now, guys.
Yeah, and while we have the tornado warning that continues for parts of, again, we're in Metcalfe County here in Edmondson. This is the view headed down that direction. You'll see that the skies have darkened there. We are working our way to seeing some of the structures that have been damaged, over a dozen now in Grayson County that we know of. So that's where this first tornado warning popped, Brian. And as we were watching that sort of fire up near Annetta, then it moved off to the south and east into parts of Hart County, continuing its trek into Edmondson County, and now working its way back into our viewing area, which will cross the border perhaps in parts of Adair County. That's still a little bit in question because the last few scans have pushed us a little bit farther south, and it may hug the farther side of the first polygon, which is why they issued the second one. So will this go closer to Curtis and Edmonton versus Gradyville and Sparksville?
Yeah, good point, especially on the eastern side there. But notice, too, look at this downdraft that has developed west of it. That is going to disrupt this cycling here on the western side of that circulation. So this may hopefully be the end of it if this gets more involved. So Kevin, I'll point that out and we'll see how this goes scan by scan, but at least know that it now has a friend, and we'll see whether or not they get along or will they truly become friends.
Yeah, it could go one of two ways, right?
Yeah, exactly. So,
like the friendships always do.
Right.
Yeah. All right. Well, we'll see what happens there. Right now, the warning continues because of that rotation that we have. It's radar indicated. We're tracking these storms. I'll tell you what. Here's the plan, because it's 6:36. I know you haven't had much of the local news outside of weather information. All of the weather is past the 99 0.5% of the viewing area. The exception is the far western part of Grayson County, which is still subjective that if it may or may not hit. Okay?
Adair County.
Adair.
I'm sorry, what I said?
Okay. Grayson.
Yeah, Adair, which it may or may not hit. So what I'd like to do is keep an eye on this offline since it's not even there yet. If it looks like it's going to really threaten and move into Adair County, we'll jump back on the air. In the meantime, we're going to contend with the stream. So there will be nonstop weather coverage for you, and that's going to be on our 24/7 weather stream, Wave Weather Now. You can find that on the Wave News app, the Wave Weather app. You can find that if you have Fire Stick, Apple TV, we're everywhere. It's a streaming device. If you have old school desktop, go to wave3.com, look for the live feed. We'll be there. So we are going to continue tracking this, but with this storm just outside of the area, and it may not impact Adair County, I suspect we can at least let most of the folks watch some of the nightly news. You can see they've sort of pared that down just a bit, still including parts of Adair County in that. And that would be the southwestern part of Adair County. Brian, are you in agreement with that?
Yeah, I think so. I think the polygon's long enough to trigger into Adair, but it doesn't necessarily mean it's heading to you. It just means that they're still in a zone of safety. We're more concerned about where it is and where we think it is most likely to go.
Correct.
And we feel that it's most likely to go more south than it will be due east.
Yeah, and I think
if that trajectory changes, we will get a good heads up that's the case, and we'll be able to get back on TV in time to let you know. But if you have the ability to watch us on the stream there in Adair County, by all means, to put your mind at ease, you can watch us there, and we'll guide you through it until it fades away from the region anyway.
All right. Before we go, let's take a look at where this. I think we're seeing some damage here. Tell me where this is, and we'll sort of start to wrap things up unless we get a lot more damage coming in. Looks like we may have a barn that was damaged here. I can't hardly tell. I see some of the folks. Again, I think this is Corey Trent coming to us from parts of Hart County. And
yeah, see some of the roof peeled off. You can see up there at the top.
Right. That's what I was looking at in the small monitor that I'm seeing. So there's another view from one of the chasers headed down south of E-Town, making its way south into probably going down toward Grayson County to check out some of the damage that's happened there. So we've got a number of areas that have been impacted by today's weather. This is a storm that we are watching. We are going to be on with nonstop coverage. And I'll tell you, if this storm impacts the far western part of Adair County, we'll jump back on. But in the meantime, let's get you to some nightly news with NBC, and then we'll come back on as necessary. Obviously, we're back on at 7 o'clock anyway. So you've been watching nonstop weather coverage. The bulk of the viewing area, in fact, let me just go back to our home view and put the radar on in the clear with very little impact from weather. The only county that may be impacted, and that's a maybe, is western Adair County, far western Adair County. And should that take place, we're going to jump back on the air. But I'm not confident that that's going to happen. And with that, we'll get you to nightly news, and we'll be back as needed. Thanks for watching Wave and trusting the Wave Storm Tracking team. For Brian Good and Ryan Hoke, I'm Kevin Harnett, and we'll be back as necessary.